Am I the asshole for purposefully ordering meat items so I don't have to share with my vegetarian friend? I have a friend who is a vegetarian and very entitled. She believes that her money is hers, and my money is ours. I love sharing food with friends. I eat almost exclusively family style, but I hate sharing food with this friend because she doesn't share food with me. To avoid confrontation, I have started exclusively ordering meat items whenever we eat together. Recently, we went out to eat and I ordered chili cheese fries and I added steak. My friend interjected and asked if we could get the steak on the side so we could share. The waiter was like sure, and I kind of just stared blankly, silently fuming. But then when the fries came I immediately dumped all the steak on the fries and started mixing. She was like wait, and I said oh oops sorry, and continued eating. She said she would have ordered more food if we weren't sharing, and I said, well then order it. But she didn't because she was trying to save money. She ate her sad salad and kind of passive-aggressively said, man I wish I had some fries with this too. I ignored the tone and just responded cheerily, you should get some, they're good. Hopefully she gets the hint soon. Edited. Okay, I'm sick of saying this but this person does not respond well to criticism. Friends have tried and failed to bring up issues about money with this person before. It does not end well. I am prioritizing my own mental health over being mature and doing the right thing. Go watch an after-school special. How do I add a flair? No more advice Pulez, this is event-relevant comments. Comment, genuine question. Has anyone ever expressed that it annoys them when she does this? Sometimes people don't realize they're being annoying. If you haven't already, I would try to set the boundary that you don't mind sharing food if she also shares food. Tell her that you understand she needs to save money, but that it doesn't mean that you can afford her to keep eating your food too. If she doesn't take it well, that's a sign to distance yourself. If she apologizes and works on it, it could be genuine ignorance. OOP. Yes, there have been multiple attempts at boundary setting in the past all the way from when we were little. That is when I learned that most people would rather keep the peace by placating the dramatic person rather than hold the dramatic person accountable. She is manipulative. There was a whole issue at prom where she didn't pay her share for the limo. The kid who did would not let her on. She cried. The kid's parents felt bad and covered for her, made the kid apologize. She always has a sob story. She's always the victim. I have even offered her to apply for a job in the past where I work, as a busser, because I too thought she just needed help. BC again, she's manipulative. Before my eyes were opened. She said to my face, I could never bus tables. Is there a host position open? This isn't her only thing, she is manipulative and selfish in every single way. Some people see it, some people don't, and until everyone sees it, I'm not going to be the hero that calls her out on it. Update. My post blew up and lots of people asked for an update. Nothing too interesting happened until last week, so here it goes. TLDR of last post. Mooch vegetarian friend who likes to steal food but doesn't like to share keeps stealing my food, so I purposefully order meat items to not share. Update. Long story short, I'm no longer friends with Mooch. Another instance happened that was the catalyst for me. But I didn't make a dramatic show of anything, I just slowly stopped going on outings where Mooch was invited. All of my friends seemed to think Mooch isn't that bad, so they weren't really wanting to ice her out for me, which is totally understandable. But unfortunately I stopped hanging out with most of my friends. That is until last week. My friends had planned a short spring break trip to Mexico. I didn't go because Mooch was invited. I even warned them that Mooch was going to make it miserable, but no one listened to me. And shocker to everyone except for me, the trip was awful. She didn't pay for a single thing. She still owes people her portion of the Airbnb and gas money for the drive. Additionally, she had a sour mood anytime plans didn't go her way. Example, group wants to go to the markets, Mooch wants to go to rent a boat, majority rules they go to market, Mooch has a giant frown and makes sure everyone is aware she is having a bad time. One night, everyone went clubbing. She got tired and wanted to go home. No one wanted to go with her. She was waiting around with her giant frown, clearly wanting someone to leave with her so she didn't have to pay for the Uber. She finally orders an Uber for herself. After the Uber arrives, two girls decide they are actually tired too, so they take the Uber with her. She had the audacity to Venmo request them money for the Uber after having not paid for anything else the entire trip. And one of the girls she Venmo requests was the one that paid for the Airbnb that she still had not paid her back for. For the record, everyone else took turns paying for Ubers. No one Venmo requested each other for that. This was the first and only Uber Mooch ever paid for. That girl immediately starts a group chat with a couple of people on the trip and me with my favorite thing to hear, OMG OP, you were right. Then I got to sit back and just watch as everyone vomited to me about everything terrible that happened on the trip. So it sounds like these 5 people plus me are done with her. Not sure how the rest of the group feels, but at least I have 5 people I can hang out with regularly again. Top comments. Comment 1. Clearly you've never had a long-term toxic friend or relationship before, because you'd know how hard these habits are to break. They've known each other since childhood and it's hard to set boundaries with someone like this when they are repeatedly broken. Plus she never said that not going on that trip made her miserable. Quite the opposite actually. Also, did you ever consider that OP might be the one with money problems? Maybe, just maybe, she doesn't want to hang out with someone who thinks OP's money is also hers. OP. It's not even the money problems, even though yes that's at the forefront. It's that she expects everyone to serve her and cater to her feelings all the time. She wants final decision making for all activities while not paying. It's the fact that I have to drive her everywhere, but I'm also not allowed to leave until she's ready. Like fuck if not wanting to spend time with her makes me mean, I'd rather be mean than continue being a doormat. Comment 2. Karma is a dish best served with meat if you asked me. I'm glad they all woke up. I hope she's lonely with her sad salads. The incident that made OOP cut off the friendship thanks to you/yes go away for finding this comment. I was her ride to a group activity. Right before I was about to leave, my mom decided to pick a fight with me about my room being a mess. When my mom and I fight, she can be kind of mean, so I was sobbing. And my friends know this. I texted my friends that I couldn't come anymore because my mom grounded me. Mooch said, "But you were my ride." And I asked the group if someone else can pick her up. Everyone else lives kind of far and no one wants to go out of their way to pick Mooch up. She calls me and asks that if I can't come hang out, can I at least come pick her up, drop her off at the hangout location and then pick her up again at the end of the night. She even said, "I feel like your mom would understand you made the commitment to drive me." I just said no, and to her credit she accepted it and then ended with, "Well that sucks, I hope you feel better." BC she can tell I've been crying. That was just the final straw for me. My boyfriend admitted he wishes I was still fat after I lost weight, and I'm so *king pissed to process his hurtful confession. Original post. I, 21F, have been dating my boyfriend Adam, 28M, for almost 3 years now. I feel like some context is needed to accurately describe our situation. When I was 15 my older brother passed away in a car accident and it threw me into a depression where I became very overweight. He was my best friend and meant the world to me. Losing him led me into the worst years of my life. A few months after I turned 18 I met Adam. He was one of my friend's older brother and we hit it off. He's smart, charismatic and I loved his sense of humor. Adam is also heavy but he was so comfortable in his skin it really made me admire his confidence. I couldn't stand to even look at myself in a mirror so this last year I buckled down and lost a very significant amount of weight and now I'm even below my high school weight. I've never been this fit in my life and I feel so good about myself. My 21st birthday was this last Saturday and Adam and my friends had planned a party for me. Unfortunately, Adam had a family emergency so he wasn't going to be around for my birthday. I was completely okay with this and reassured him that it was fine when I drove him to the airport. My friend Andrea recommended that we should instead go to a strip club and I thought that was an amazing idea. I'd like to reiterate that it would have been a woman's only strip club. The next time I talked to Adam I told him about the change in plans and he was very adamant that he didn't want me to go. He said it wasn't that he didn't trust me, it's that he didn't trust my friends. I ended up dropping the subject to not cause him further stress and we ended up just having the party they originally planned. Adam arrived today and I felt something was off. Something has been off since I lost weight. I kept badgering him until he finally opened up. We talked and he eventually told me that we don't even look like we belong together anymore. He brought up an instance where we were at the grocery store a week ago and a guy was asking me questions about watermelons in the fruit section. It was a casual conversation but he referred to my boyfriend as my brother and I quickly corrected him. The guy apologized, said we looked similar and walked off. At the time my boyfriend laughed it off and didn't bring it up again. He then said something that pissed me off so bad. He said, "Sometimes I wish you were still big so no one else would want you." I lost all sympathy and quickly corrected him. I told him even when I was a big girl guys hit on me all the time and just like I always do I told them I have a boyfriend that I love. He looked dumbfounded when I said this. Elle told him how fucked it was that he wishes that I was back at the size where I was depressed and hated myself. He told me he misspoke and I'm blowing things out of proportion. We argued more and he ended up leaving to his brothers to give me space. I've been sitting here just pissing myself off about what he said. Did he really think I was that unattractive when I was bigger? If so, why did he date me? Did he think I was desperate to be with someone because I was so fat? I just need some third-party advice. Am I overreacting? Relevant comments. Commenter 1, Enor. And he was a 25-year-old seeking out an 18-year-old to date. Trust that when you're 25 you'll see how big a gap that is. He was probably dating someone that much younger than him because girls his age didn't want him and he thought you'd be easier to control. Even if this wasn't an active thought, the second you took control of your body by losing weight he was unhappy. A good partner hypes you up when you achieve something you wanted, they don't try to cut you down. This dude is not worth the time of day. OOP. Well, all I know is that his previous relationship lasted 5 years and it was a girl he dated in college. I never really considered that he had the intention to control me and I really hope that isn't the case. This is the first comment he's really made that cut me down, but now that I think about it you are right, he hasn't really hyped me up either. Commenter 2. You are 21 and feeling good about yourself. Maybe it's time to lose about 300 pounds more of dead weight and leave the guy that snatched up an 18-year-old when he was 25 because he thought no one else wanted her. Update 1. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone for giving me their opinions and advice, it really means a lot to me. I debated if I should post again but I need an outlet to vent. I've been laying here in the dark and I've read basically all the comments and I think an update is warranted. Basically Adam and I are taking a break and I've been crying my eyes out for the last few hours. He came home today and we both agreed that we need to talk and get everything out in the open. He started off by apologizing for what he said, particularly the, "Sometimes I wish you were still big so no one else would want you" part. I asked if he thought I was unattractive when I was bigger and he said no, but he doesn't understand why I'm dieting and exercising the way I am. Adam said I shouldn't have to cook 2 different meals and should just eat what he does, and me going to the gym 6 times a week is obsessive. I told him that it makes me happy, bettering myself, and he said that it has completely changed me. Adam went on to talk about how all I really care about is my looks now. He said he liked my hair how it used to be before I went to a stylist. He liked how I used to paint my own nails instead of getting them done and how I used to never wear makeup instead of how I have to have some on now before I go out. Adam then said he knows I lost weight because I was unhappy with myself, but he was always happy with me and he doesn't understand why I have to keep trying to make myself hotter when I was already hot. We talked back and forth but it felt like I was just doing everything wrong. Adam said that I don't ever want to do things he enjoys anymore, like play video games with him or binge watch movies, and he feels like I'm a different person. I have pushed him to go on walks with me or go to the gym in the past but he's told me no, so I figured we just had our different hobbies. I feel bad because I see from his point of view I have changed and I may not be the girl he fell in love with. I told him I love him and he said he loves me too, but we need to separate for a bit and figure out if we're best for each other. I didn't argue, I just said okay and let him pack his things and leave. He's letting me stay in the apartment until I can move my stuff out. I've been crying my eyes out and everything feels like a blur. I don't know where to go from here and I feel like I ruined my first real relationship. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You didn't really mention in your original post that you had started focusing so much on how you look besides your fitness regime. Or that you had stopped enjoying the same activities, for example gaming and movie binging. This isn't a criticism of you, but it does indeed sound like you have changed significantly from the person he knew, so perhaps separation was not a terrible idea. You are very young, I know it sounds cliché, but you will find someone else who you're more compatible with in future. It hurts right now, but you just need time. Be strong. OOP. Well, at the time it felt like me changing my appearance wasn't so much of an issue since he never complained about it, but I see now I was wrong. Now replaying everything in my mind, his reactions have always been indifferent whenever I would show off my hair or nails to him. I still would play video games and watch movies with him, but it wasn't as often as it used to be. For a time that's all we did every day. I do appreciate your input and I know it may sound dumb, but I'm holding out hope we work things out. Commenter 2. Taking a break? What the hell does that mean? Are you single or taken? Can you have a hookup or not see other people? Look, good luck, but you're going to get hit on and realize you're missing out on a lot of fun. I'm surprised he asked for the break. Seems he would be extremely worried that you will meet someone new and leave him. OP. From what he said, he wants us to take some time apart and connect again. I was also confused by what this meant for us, but he doesn't want us to see other people for now. I know most people are suggesting we split up, but I get this sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach when I consider it. Update 2. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who reached out. Your support has meant so much to me. To get to the point, I broke up with Adam a few days ago and I'm still trying to process everything that happened. Things have been hectic and I'm settling into my new situation. Last week I had decided it was time for me to move out of the apartment. Adam made it clear that our relationship wasn't going to improve unless we took time apart, and as bad as I felt, I knew he wasn't going to come back until I was gone. I knew I wasn't going to be able to move all my stuff by myself, so I decided to ask a coworker if they could help me. The only heavy things I had were basically my bed frame and dresser, the rest were just boxes and suitcases full of clothes. Last Monday I asked my co-worker David if he could help me move my stuff into my parents' garage. I know he used to work for a moving company and he has a truck, so I was hoping he could do it for $100 LOL. I showed him pictures of my stuff and he said he would just have to take apart my bed frame, but yeah, he could do it on Thursday, which was his next day off. I didn't have that day off, but I had PTO to cover it, so it was fine. Thursday comes and David shows up to the apartment. I show him where everything is and he goes out to his truck to get his tools. It wasn't more than like a minute or two when I hear Adam's voice yelling, "Did you fuck my girlfriend?" I immediately go into the living room and see David with his hands up looking very confused and Adam asking him, "Did you fuck her?" I swear this was the most humiliating thing that has ever happened to me. I could feel my face get red. I go over and grab Adam's hand and pull him into the bedroom. He's freaking out asking if David is the guy I've been seeing. I told him he's crazy and that David is my coworker and he's only here to help me move my stuff. He said he didn't believe me and he wanted to see my phone. I told him I didn't have anything to hide, but if he goes through my phone, that's a deal breaker for me. He waited a second before taking my phone and going through it. I stood there watching him open up all my socials, all my texts, and even scroll through all of my pictures. It was almost like a light switch went off in my head and whatever love I had for him was gone. I felt disgusted. I told him that I was breaking up with him and he looked shocked. He started apologizing and said he was coming over to tell me not to move out and that he wants me to stay with him, but he just freaked out when he saw me here with a guy. That's when I realized that Adam knows I work on Thursdays, so why was he even over here? I asked him this, but he just kept apologizing and begging me to not leave him. Something in me finally snapped and I screamed at him to get out. I've been mad before, but I've never screamed at anyone like that. He just stared at me, turned around and left. I immediately picked up my phone and blocked him. I found David in his truck and apologized to him and asked if he could still help me, and he said of course. After we had everything put up in my parents' garage, I went to pay him and he said instead I could buy him lunch. I took him up on the offer because it would be cheaper than $100 and I suggested Applebee's LOL. It was nice getting to vent to someone who saw how crazy Adam was firsthand. After we were done, he went and paid and said I can get him next time. The breakup didn't really hit me until the next day, and even though I cried my eyes out, it felt good, like I got this huge weight off my chest. To be honest, it's almost scary how okay I'm feeling about it all. Maybe it hasn't fully sunk in yet and I'll miss him when it does, but for now I feel fine. Thank you to everyone who's given their advice and helped me. I'm pretty sure this is my last update unless something crazy happens. Top comments. Commenter 1, woo. The fact that he was there when he knew you were meant to be working is a huge red flag. Is he tracking you because WTF? Stay safe. Commenter 2, you need to check your stuff for AirTags. It's super sus that he knew to be at the house when you were. I agreed to open our relationship because my girlfriend wanted it, but it wrecked her life. My boyfriend, 24F, and I, 27M, chose to have an open relationship after 5 years of monogamy. We had dated in high school, but when I left for college, we broke up because I suspected she no longer liked me. Years later, Mom told me that she understood I needed to stretch my wings and enjoy my life while at college. While I was away at college, her mother became extremely severe after discovering she had a boyfriend and had lost her virginity. She wasn't permitted to hang out with friends or go anywhere, and because she was financially reliant on her mother, she stayed under her mother's control even when she started college. Meanwhile, I was out dating, having fun and trying to enjoy life, but I still missed her, even if she was at home. When we first met and began dating again, she informed me about her mother's treatment and I told her about my college experiences. We moved in together in 2016 and have been living there ever since. Over the past year, she has expressed a desire to try new activities. I felt jealous at first, but then I understood. The first time we pondered beginning our relationship, the guy she was interested in turned out to be rather trash, so she opted against it. She recently made a new acquaintance at work and told me she wanted to spend time with him. They've been talking all the time, but they haven't had any sex yet. Meanwhile, I've been using dating apps, interacting with individuals, and attempting to form connections. However, I'm understanding more and more that I don't care about anyone else and only want to be with her. It's painful while I'm at work, and we don't see each other often during the week. Then, on weekends when I'm not working, she hangs around with him. I feel as if I've taken a back seat to this entire event, and I can't help but feel lonely and alone. Every time I tell her I'm uncomfortable, she wants to cancel everything and end our relationship. She has stated that she is aware that this is an itch that must be scratched, and that if she does not, she will be left wondering about it forever. I suppose all I need is someone to communicate my emotions to and help me work through how I feel. I have an appointment with a therapist, which should help a lot. We began our relationship on July 7, 2022, after 5 years of monogamy because she wanted to expand her sexual experiences after growing up in an incredibly conservative environment. There were setbacks since I'm highly monogamous and had difficulty meeting mates, but she was able to secure dates and encounters almost immediately. Things improved after I went to therapy and discovered healthy ways to communicate my emotions. Our connection remained strong, but it improved much more as I began sharing my emotions more efficiently. I ultimately met someone who was both a great friend and a fantastic sexual partner. Unlike my partner, I discovered that I couldn't have intimacy with strangers unless I had a link, and I didn't want any more sexual encounters because I grew up with a lot more freedom. My girlfriend, on the other hand, began to get jealous of my relationship with this new companion. She began interfering with our time together, contacting me frequently when I was with this person or initiating sex with me just as I was ready to leave. This behavior began to indicate a pattern for me. Before this year, my girlfriend was extremely responsible. She handled money well, even when we didn't have much. She worked a steady job with regular hours and had started college the previous fall to advance her career. However, prior to us starting our relationship, she began to regress. It began with her spending her whole income on tattoos and piercings, which I didn't mind because I enjoy external self-expression. But then she started antagonizing her bosses, arriving hours late or quitting work early without notice. This semester, her grades fell, and she gradually stopped attending class, until she had no idea when midterms or spring break were. She had no idea finals were over and the semester had ended. My girlfriend took a 2-month leave of absence from her job, stating it was for her mental health, about a month or two after I began to feel closer to my new partner. When I proposed therapy, she declined. She limited her encounters to one constant guy and began spending days with him at a time. This would have been a greater red sign if I hadn't begun working 12-hour swing shifts this year. She told me she hated being at home alone, and since I was gone so much, it made sense for her to find somewhere else to be while I was at work. Despite the fact that she does not own a car or a driver's license, she has begun to use meal delivery services. This made no sense, especially since I buy groceries and keep the house supplied with food. She was wasting my money because she was not working. It started to feel like she'd lost her sense of maturity. When I brought up money problems or the fact that she wasn't doing anything at home while I was at work, she became frustrated. She'd spend the entire day lying in bed, ordering food. Whenever I tried to have good conversations about my feelings in the relationship, she would shut off. She'd reply she hadn't noticed any changes and that I might be making things up in my head. Eventually, she quit her work without having anything else planned. This drove me to distance myself from her, both physically and emotionally, because I thought my relationship requirements were not being addressed. She noticed right away, presuming I was no longer attracted to her. She grew irritated because I stopped initiating intimacy and the quality of our relationship had worsened. I attempted to make things right by sharing my emotions and explaining why it was difficult for me to want intimacy from her. However, she insisted that I was simply calling her a problem. We no longer have closeness, let alone cuddling. We still talk a lot, but much of it revolves around her sexual partner. I barely see her anymore, and whenever I try to initiate intimacy, she always has an excuse. She's sleepy, on her period, or anything. When she attempts to initiate sex, it is usually at the most embarrassing or inconvenient times. All of the closeness has vanished, and we haven't had sex in about 2 months. I want to talk to her about it, but every time I bring it up, she gets irritated and threatens to end the relationship or claims I'm never satisfied. She continually tells me that I am the man she wants to marry and that she cannot imagine herself with anyone else, which complicates the matter even more. My working belief is that what I need in my life is maturity, and the partner I found exemplifies that: responsible, fun, and balanced. On the other hand, my girlfriend appears to be looking for mindless entertainment and availability, and her present boyfriend reflects this. He has no personal commitments, rarely works, and is always available. Whatever happens, I do not want to leave my girlfriend. I know who she was and who I fell in love with, but I'm not sure whether I care about who she is today. We've discussed the possibility of couples therapy once we've gotten our finances under control, but she doesn't seem interested. I really don't know what to do at this point. Update 1. The same day I wrote this, she received a call from her mother, the biggest enemy in her childhood. They've had surface-level contact since she left home, but her mother informed her that her brother was experiencing psychotic episodes as a result of years of seclusion. Her mother also acknowledged that she had realized how terribly she had raised her children and apologized to my girlfriend. This appeared to trigger something in her, and she let out a lot of resentment. She informed her mother that she was going to begin therapy because she recognized she was becoming like her and did not want to hurt others the way she had been abused as a child. I'm not sure how serious she meant it, because she was pretty emotional at the moment. However, while on break from her current job, which she started last week, she began looking for a second one. She stated that having too much free time this year had a detrimental impact on her, and she wanted to try to achieve emotional and financial stability. This is all great progress, but several people in the comments made valid points. Ultimately, I need to figure out what I truly desire. I understand that jumping from one relationship to another will not serve myself or anyone else in the long run. I've also realized that I deserve to establish limits and have a say in my own life, but I recognize that partnerships involve work, and that work must be shared. I need to do some serious thinking, and I'll provide an update if anything changes. Update 2. It's been a few months, so I thought I'd provide an update. About a week after the initial post, I recognized that things were not improving. I discussed it with some friends and they all agreed it was time to break up. I knew it was ultimately my decision, but after reading all of the comments, I realized I needed to take charge of how I wanted to live my life. I broke up with her and stated why. I highlighted the things I wasn't happy with and the adjustments I'd like to see if we ever decided to get back together. She sobbed, and we spoke on the phone because we were never both home at the same time. She appeared to understand my reasoning and stated she would work on herself. As our lease expired, my roommate and I searched for a new place to live. She had expected she would move in with me, which I briefly pondered. However, I decided against it, especially when she went on a rant about how she wanted to destroy my friends after discovering they had encouraged me to quit my relationship with her. Finally, I informed her she couldn't come with me. She ended up moving in with the person she had been seeing, but she remained in touch with me. She never really tried to improve herself. Instead, she would constantly moan about how bad her new boyfriend was, drawing parallels to our previous relationship. She eventually recognized that how he treated her was harsh and toxic. I pointed out the parallels between her connection with him and the way she treated me. She made a half-hearted apology, but it didn't feel genuine. I returned to treatment and have been doing well ever since. My finances are more steady than they have been in years, and I am now dating the woman I was seeing previously. This is the easiest relationship I've ever had. Our communication methods are consistent and we communicate affection in the same way. It was surprising at first since I had become accustomed to turbulence and dysfunction in past relationships, but dating her felt like finally having someone on my side, someone dependable and steady. It took time to break my codependent tendencies and learn that I'm entitled to my own space and freedom. With her encouragement, I resumed my interests and began going back to the gym. Reflecting on the prior 6 years, I realize how much I tolerated and sacrificed for my ex, which prompted me to lash out in fury. My therapist helped me realize that channeling my anger in that way wasn't good. So I've been working on being more productive and creative. Life now feels much more balanced and fulfilling. My childhood best friend's boyfriend raped me 10 years ago. I kept quiet but revealed it when they got married, so everyone blames me. I kept quiet for 10 years, but I told them the truth when they were married. Now everyone blames me for speaking up. Please bear with me as I provide a brief backstory. Growing up, I, F27, had a childhood friend named Angie, F27, who was as close as a genuine sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's homes, celebrating family occasions together. When my parents divorced, I lived with her from the age of 6 until 18. I learned to speak some Russian because she is Russian, and she learnt some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and younger sister felt like family to me. During our teenage years, Angie had 2 male best pals. She began seeing one of them, and the other, Nico, now 29, who was also Russian, is the person I began dating when I was 17. Growing up, I struggled with a cardiac ailment. I won't bore you with the details, but I needed to take a number of medications. Starting at the age of 16, I became healthier and no longer needed to take them on a daily basis, except when my heart rate became irregular. However, when this occurred, it became exceedingly painful. My heart would cramp and I would begin to hyperventilate. All of my pals, including Nico, were aware of this, and they also understood that combining my medications with alcohol would cause me to black out. As a result, I didn't smoke or drink much while growing up. I was concerned about my health and only drank at home or in a safe environment. Here, the legal drinking age is 16, and I rarely drank anything other than wine or beer. I had sex for the first time with Nico when I was 17. 2 weeks later, while my parents were at a retreat, he came over for a date night. I had 1 glass of wine, but then I began experiencing health problems, which led to me taking my medication and going asleep. The next morning, I felt a little sore, but I didn't give it much thought. 2 weeks later, I informed Nico that my menstruation was late. He panicked and confessed to having sex with me while I was unconscious. We'd done it before, so he didn't think much about it. He didn't have a condom, but since I was on the pill, he assumed it was fine. He also stated that he did not come into me, but rather in a tissue. I felt violated and disgusted by myself. I didn't know how to convey it, so I merely told Angie. I was a complete wreck for a few years and couldn't have sex until 2 years later. I didn't recall any of it, but I was too embarrassed to tell my mother or anyone else. I didn't consider it rape at the time because I was too young to grasp what had happened and how I'd been assaulted. Angie assured me that everything was fine and that if I felt horrible about it, I should end our relationship. But because we were in a relationship and had sex before, I felt conflicted. I eventually broke up with him the next day. Nico and Angie were close and spent a lot of time together, so he must have cried to her about his broken heart. After a few months, I felt compelled to see him whenever I visited her. I explained that I couldn't see him, but she didn't comprehend. Eventually, the contact ended and we haven't texted or seen each other in years. I continue to follow her and her family on social media. I noticed that her brother was expecting his first child. Because I was incredibly close to her family, I replied on the Instagram post to offer my happiness. He contacted me thereafter. I had missed his wedding, but he wanted to know whether I would be interested in attending the baby shower, as we hadn't spoken in years and were formerly very close. He told me I was like his third little sister. I asked Nico if he would be attending, as Angie and he had been dating for 9 years, and he replied sure. I didn't say much, but I offered to send him a modest gift if he could give me his current address. I mentioned that I would not be attending. He kept nagging me about what occurred all those years ago and why I'm no longer in their lives. Angie told her family that I couldn't see her since she was seeing my ex, but her brother suspected more. This is when I believed I could be honest. I told him the truth about what occurred back then. While I didn't realize it at 17, I now know it was rape, and I referred to it as such. I didn't hear back from him, but Angie contacted me a few days later, furious. Nico had intended to propose at the baby shower, but Angie's brother is now opposed after learning why I stopped communicating. She informed me she loves Nico and intends to stay with him, but her brother said she is no longer a part of his life. He does not want his baby girl to be raised by a rapist's family. Since then, I've received messages from former high school acquaintances telling me that I should have ignored it and not told anyone. They claim that because I didn't speak up back then, I've lost my right to do so now, and that I'm a terrible person for causing problems. Someone's life has been damaged because of something he did as a child 10 years ago. Is it really my fault for speaking up? Comments where OP has replied. The OP responds to comments regarding her right to speak up, stating that she now realizes it was rape. But we grew up in a little town of about 5,000 people, and I'm not sure what would have happened if I had spoken up. He was 19 at the time, 2 years older, and everyone knows everything about everyone else. It would have had a significant influence back then, just as it does today. They all still reside there, and word has spread. That is why so many of our former classmates, the majority of whom still reside in the area, are contacting us. They've left me furious texts. They've known Nico their entire lives and are sticking by him. When I was 20, I moved out, and my mother departed soon after. We didn't keep in touch with most folks. It still aches my heart to receive such a violent response from people who were my entire childhood. Thank you for all of your well wishes, I sincerely appreciate it. OP, Nico ruined his own life, not mine. I recognize that he is responsible for what transpired. The pushback I'm getting is because he appears to be a different guy now, and Angie believes that what he did as a youngster shouldn't ruin his life. Angie also says it has nothing to do with her brother's daughter. I'm not sure if Nico will ever act out or do anything, but it doesn't change what happened to me. Thank you for confirming this. I can't stop feeling awful about the repercussions. While I do not want to see Nico or Angie, I am at peace with what happened to me back then. Commenter, but why are they assaulting you rather than the brother? You are not the one who objects to the marriage. To be honest, it all feels like misogyny and victim blaming. OP, I suppose since he is family and I am the outsider who has ruined their family. I've received numerous messages from people who previously did not have my phone number. I'm blocking as many as I can, but it's difficult not to allow these remarks get to you. Commenter, NTA. They got together so quickly after the two of you split up. I can't help but think if your friend was encouraging you to abandon your relationship with Nico because she had always wanted to be with him. OP, I really don't believe that. They've known one other for years, and she broke up with her boyfriend 2 weeks before I ended my relationship with Nico. It is a small village of approximately 5,000 people. Even with pupils our age from adjacent villages, our school had just 500 students. The possibilities were extremely limited. Update, September 15, 2024. First and foremost, I'm grateful to everyone who took the time to read my tale and leave comments. I read over every comment and attempted to respond to as many as possible. It offered me a glimmer of hope for compassion toward rape victims, as well as the confidence to resist the hostility I faced. Mental update. Reading all of the letters justifying my decision to speak up made me realize how insecure I was about what I was permitted to do and how much I was trying to make things right for people other than myself. This notably applied to Nico and Angie. All of you are correct. If Nico had truly changed, he would have apologized, reached out, or attempted to make amends in some way, either when word reached him from his brother-in-law or earlier in his life. Angie, my former best friend, should have felt sympathy if she respected me as a person or the time we spent together. Her reactions taught me not to hesitate in my actions. I began going to therapy at the age of 21 and felt I had moved on from the rape as much as possible, but I realized how humiliated I am almost 10 years later for an act that was completely out of my control. I was embarrassed to speak up back then, and I was frightened that the people around me might react differently. I still felt guilty about speaking up today, so I've been trying to accept what happened to me and not apologize for other people's actions, especially when they don't even respect me. Since then, I preserved all unwanted WhatsApp messages for future reference. Angie's mother contacted me the next day, crying. I shouldn't have answered the phone, but during our 10-year friendship I considered her an aunt, almost a second mother. She used to joke that as her children ran around the house, I would always take the time to drink tea and converse with her, giving her more love and attention than her actual children. While she apologized for what had happened and what I had been through as a youngster, she couldn't believe I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. Angie's brother's refusal to accept Nico as a member of the family, and Angie's support for Nico, has divided their family, and she is distraught. She has grown to adore Nico as if he were a family member, and she regards him as nothing more than a nice young guy who she hopes will bring her daughter happiness. It wasn't aggressive or unpleasant language, just a heartbroken mother who claimed to understand my pain while still seeing flaws in me. Angie's mother tried to persuade me to apologize or retract what I said, but I refused since I don't see any blame in myself. Despite everything that has transpired, I feel Nico has not changed and is simply hiding it better. He sees how people are sticking by him and supporting his actions, so he sees no reason to change, which I didn't want to encourage. Angie's mother never used the word rape. I tried to correct her every time she mentioned it, naming it so she could better comprehend, but she only started crying harder. It didn't make sense for us to keep chatting. Angie's mother used to communicate with my mother, and after our chat, she reached out to her. I was terrified my mother would find out because she comes from a very conservative background. We had a long conversation, and while I haven't met her in person yet, she apologized for not being there for me and not making me feel like I could communicate to her. I attempted to calm her down as much as I could, but when she inquired if my current boyfriend knew I was used like that, I became enraged. She was afraid my partner would abandon me if he found out, meaning that what had transpired made me less valuable or appealing. I hung up after she urged me to keep it a secret from our family both abroad and in our country. She was acting just as I had feared she would, as if it were something shameful. It was especially difficult because I am working hard to overcome my feelings of shame. She has now apologized, but it is evident that her attitude toward me has altered. I'm not sure how to handle it yet, but it's something to be concerned about in the coming weeks. As some of you suggested, I wrote Angie's brother, Sven, again to apologize for the mess, but I'm glad it's out in the open. I also told him how proud I was that he was defending his family. I asked if his old email address still worked since I wanted to send him a gift card. He did not react, but I received a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for coming out and notifying them about Nico. Apparently, there were a couple times that made her uncomfortable. Some jokes Nico told, and in retrospect, she understands why. Sven allegedly notified her as soon as he received my initial SMS, and they have both since seen Angie but not Nico. She refuses to remain in the same room or house with him, as does their unborn daughter. Sven and Angie's mother has visited them several times, pleading with them to forgive Nico, and Sven has given in little. Angie and Nico will marry, and Sven will attend, but not his wife. Nico is welcome in the family, but is not permitted to communicate with Sven's wife or daughter. These restrictions do not apply to Angie. Sven has been suffering while attempting to assuage his mother's concerns, and he is unable to take a position and cut them out totally. This is the compromise they made without his wife's approval, and she told me she is doing everything she can to cut them out of their lives indefinitely. She wants to be closer to her family as well, and she believes this is the perfect opportunity, but she is unsure if she can follow through. His wife apologized profusely for all of the problems I've had, and it's been a difficult situation for them. Sven understands that it is not my fault, but he prefers not to communicate. It's difficult for him to speak with or see my name because, while he knows I'm not the guilty party, I was the bearer of terrible news, and he sees me as the beginning of all this drama. She told me several times that neither she nor Sven think I'm the evil guy, they're just fatigued from everything, and it's been incredibly difficult on them. That is all that has transpired thus far. I'm frustrated with how everything came to be. Nico appears to be going about his business without regard for the consequences. I didn't want him to suffer, but I guess part of me wanted an apology for all the pain I had endured. Now I have to deal with my mother's changed, ashamed opinion of me. Even though I'm relieved that it's all over, it's difficult for me to stick to my decisions. Throughout this journey, my spouse and best friend have both provided a shoulder to cry on. My best friend has been outraged for me, and I'm delighted to have both of them by my side. Right now, I'm simply emotionally spent, but I'm sure it will improve after a few weeks. After my pregnant Sil ignored my son's severe allergy and brought peanut-based snacks into our home, I threw them out. Am I the asshole? Hello, this is a throwaway account and a repost and update of sorts because my post got taken down from the other Am I the Asshole sub. My brother and his wife Laura, who is 7 months pregnant, are staying with us for a week or so since he's interviewing for jobs in the city my family and I are in. My kids love having their aunt and uncle around and everything's been great. Yesterday, Laura went out and came back with groceries. I thanked her but told her that we don't expect them to do this, the kitchen is stocked and that we're just enjoying having them. She said that she wanted to and that most were cravings she's been having. I started helping her unload the bags and noticed that a lot of snacks were with peanuts. Cookies, crackers, PB, even some sort of cake fusion. It all made me uneasy because she knows my oldest son, 8M, is extremely allergic. I don't keep anything of the kind in our home because we've had an incident when he was younger, where we almost lost him. I didn't want to be rude but I told her that I'm not comfortable with having the stuff in the house. She told me that she would be careful, that she wouldn't eat it around him or his siblings and that she'd clean up after herself, that she was having intense cravings and needed them. Look, I've had 4 kids and kind of get where she's coming from, although I never had to have something, but every woman is different. I made sure my son knew not to touch any of it and to leave her alone when she's eating them. That was that. Today, I woke up early to make breakfast and open the fridge only to be greeted by strawberries dipped in PB left out without a container to chill. The PB jar wasn't sealed properly next to them and there were sandwiches on a plate because she likes the bread cold and soggy. I was pissed. I've read enough about airborne contamination to know that you can't really determine it, but I wasn't risking it. I grabbed a bag and started throwing everything in it, our groceries, hers, I didn't care. I was going to take the bag, drive to a shelter and let them know the situation. Laura woke up while I was on my rampage, came down and asked all upset what I was doing. I was snippy with her and didn't try to hide it. We got in an argument with her defensively saying that I can't do this, that the baby needs it and that it's cruel to put a pregnant woman through unsatisfied cravings. I told her bluntly that I don't give a single fuck, if she can't keep to her word then I won't either and that she'll live without her craving. My son can't say the same with his allergy. She went back upstairs, packed her bag and came back down, grabbed the bag of food and left in a huff. My brother was at his interview and called me half an hour later to ask me what happened. He was upset with his wife but also with me because nothing happened and at the end of the day, my son is fine. I told my husband when he came back from work and he's completely on my side. AITA, mini update. Like some people had predicted in the comments on the other sub, Laura did go straight to my family and started complaining. She hadn't twisted anything, told them the full honest story and my mother was livid. She called me panting like she ran a marathon after she berated Laura to make sure my son is okay, so I can only imagine the riot act she read to her. Apparently, even my stepdad gave Laura one of his disapproving frowns. My brother came back in the evening to get his stuff since Laura had only packed hers for some reason. He apologized for what she did and said that he'll have a chat with her once she's calmed down. She's been inconsolable. He told me that she's been crying since she left my mom's house and that she now feels unwelcome and unloved in our family and he blames me for it. My husband butted in and told him that it's enough. That whatever she's feeling doesn't cover half of what we felt and that she needs to get over herself. That I've been scrubbing the house from top to bottom for hours because of her actions. I did get panicky and went on to deep clean the whole house, especially the kitchen, but anyway, my brother left after he said that there's no leveling with us when we're being this stubborn. Now that I've had time to get out of the state I was in, I do feel bad that she's distressed and feels unwelcome in our family. That was never my goal. I've been debating sending her an apology. Not for my actions because I stand by them but for the way I went about it. I shouldn't have allowed the stuff in our house in the first place and could have been calmer about it after I opened the fridge. Update. A lot of people asked me to update, so here it is. Warning. This is a long one, and if I wasn't an before, I sure am now. So after my mom berated Laura and my brother yelled at my husband and I took the advice I was given and sent them a long text which ended up being a bit of a ramble about everything, how fucked the situation is, how we're disgusted by their stance, and how we'll be going LC until we feel ready to be around them again. That was the day after my brother packed his bags and left. I was left to read, and I thought that was that until a few days ago when I got a call from Laura. I thought about not answering it, but curiosity got the better of me. When I picked up, Laura tried to make awkward small talk, but I think she sensed I wasn't in the mood and got right to it. She apologized about her behavior, said she had no excuse other than her hormones, and we ended up having a long chat about everything. By the end of it, I actually felt better and like we could get past it and work on our relationship. She also mentioned that she would still like for my family and I to come to her birthday dinner. It wasn't going to happen in a restaurant anymore. I guess the hotel stay ended up costing them a lot, as some of you predicted, and that it was going to be at their house instead. I told her that I'll talk with my husband and get back to her. I also got a text from my brother apologizing and saying he was just trying to protect and stand by his wife. It was too soon to start mending things, as my husband pointed out, but he left the choice up to me, and I honestly believed her apology because she had never acted like that before and she seemed actually ashamed of herself. Anyway, my sister, who was also apologized to BC, she also tore her a new one. And parents, also got an apology. We're also invited, but my sister's kids wanted a cousin sleepover instead of going with us, so after talking it over with my sister, we agreed for them to have one at my house. My babysitters for a year are my next door neighbors. They're sweet and responsible 16-year twins who live with their single mom. They usually team up and tackle my kids on date nights. There's a reason I'm mentioning this. With my sister's added 2 kids to the mix, I asked their mom if she was free to join their duo and she agreed. So I called Laura and told her that Richard and I are coming. When we got to their house, Laura greeted my husband and I at the door. We handed her the gift and went in, but she seemed puzzled that we didn't have a trail of kids with us, so I reminded her that it's just us adults tonight. Same thing happened when my sister and her husband walked in. Dinner was awkward. No matter how we tried to lighten up the mood, and the conversation was stilted at best, but I thought it was at least a step forward. Laura asked this time about why the kids were not with us, that she had made special food for them. I never mentioned the kids when I got back to her, just my husband and I, but I felt like it was my fault that I didn't clarify, and so I apologized for it and thanked her for thinking of them. My sister chimed in that her kids and mine were having a cousin's sleepover tonight and how she was excited about our soon-to-be nephew to join them when he's here and older. Laura looked at her with a smile and said, "Yeah, I'm sure he'll be best friends with his cousins, as in my kids, and his step-cousins, as in my sisters." This pissed me off because we don't step anything with the kids, but I bit my tongue. For context, my sister is technically my stepsister. I know I use stepdad in my first post. I usually call him by his first name. I consider him a parental figure since he raised me since I was 10, but I had a dad and the title will always be his. My sister gave her a hurt look, but it was my brother who nudged his wife with a, "What are you doing?" look. A few minutes went by again with eating and light convo before Laura asked again about our kids, mainly who was watching them since all 4 parents are here. I told her that my neighbor and her daughters are babysitting, to which she laughed at and joked about how incompetent the girls and their mom must be to need all 3 of them to wrangle the kids. Also, for context, I have 4 kids. I'm biased and like to think they're well behaved, but they're sometimes too much for one person to handle. Even me, and I'm the one that brought them into this world. Add my sister's 2 kids and it's a lot for 2 teenage girls to handle even for just a few hours. We left at 7, it said we'll be back at 11. It has absolutely nothing to do with the girls whom my kids adore or their mom who is as kind as they come. Before I could retort anything, my mom stepped in with one of her smiles and told Laura that it's so kind of her to offer her own competence and watch the kids next time. That shut her up real fast. After that, dinner was even more awkward until we cleared the table and Laura brought out dessert while my brother got the cake from the fridge. Here's where I lost the last of my remaining brain cells. I went to the bathroom, and when I came out, I saw my husband carrying my bag and trying to usher me out of the front door to leave. He looked pissed and I was beyond confused, and obviously resisted because yes, the dinner is a train wreck, but let me at least say goodbye and give a lame excuse for our departure. When my husband tried to literally carry me out, I knew something was wrong, and after a couple of tries, I darted past him back to the dining room. Laura's now ready dessert table consisted of PB cake pops, PB pie, PB cookies, PB brownies, and top it all off, A PB birthday cake that my brother brought in and was sniffing at with a horrified look. Laura then gave me a big smile and said loudly to my family, "I thought I should at least get to have my cravings on my birthday. Get your fill before she throws these out too." I honestly thought for a second that my sister was going to tackle her, and I wasn't that far behind her because all I could think about was the fact that she thought my kids were coming and she planned this accordingly. I felt so guilty for allowing the stuff in our house the last time, and if my sister's kids hadn't wanted the sleepover, I was going to walk my son into danger a second time. I lost my shit. Without thinking about my actions, I grabbed Laura's head, forced her to talk towards my brother, who I think was too shocked to react, and slammed her head straight into the cake. I held it down as long as I could while she flailed and told her I hope she chokes on her cravings before I let her go. I honestly wanted to go for the pie too, but I had embarrassed myself enough by acting like that in the first place, so I told my brother that I'm done with both him and his wife, and if they try to contact me or my family again, I'm filing for a protective order. Then I let my husband lead me out. My sister was cackling as she followed us with her husband, but our parents stayed back. I heard Laura screaming profanities after us, but my stepdad raised his voice, which shut her up. I got a lot of jokes about his frown on my first post, but the man is as stoic as they come. Him showing any emotion is a big deal. I remember that his frown alone growing up was enough to literally stop my sister and I in our tracks, because we knew if he gave us one that we messed up. I haven't asked my mom what happened after we left because I can't handle any more heartache from my brother or his actions. I don't think this was the update anyone wanted, least of all me, but I'm completely done with both of them. Even though my brother looked like he had no idea, the stuff was in his house, happening under his damn roof. I'm sad I won't be in my nephew's life and my kids won't get to know the new cousin they've been waiting for, but I'd rather cry over that than over my son's life. I don't expect anyone to be kind in the comments. I'm 32, I shouldn't have been so naive, and I know I shouldn't have reacted like that, and I'm going to be dealing with that with my therapist along with the guilt I'm feeling, but please take it easy on me, I'm still shaken up. I'm also looking into family therapy for my kids so they can better process not having their uncle and aunt around after them having been a close presence in their lives. My aunt posted a video exposing my parents calling me a freeloader, despite all I've done for them. My name is Cameron, and I grew up in the shadow of a star. That star represented my older sister, Lily. Our house was usually full of people, uncles, aunts, cousins, you name it. They'd crowd into our backyard like ants at a picnic, drawn by the promise of my mother's wonderful barbecue and the opportunity to see Lily play. Our backyard was like a stage, with its beautifully groomed lawn and the large oak tree providing the perfect backdrop. Dad would light the grill, the aroma of charcoal and sizzling meat filling the air, while Mom went around making sure everyone had a drink in hand. "Lily, sweetie," Aunt Marge would call out, her voice cutting through the din, "why don't you give us a little song?" All eyes would immediately turn to my sister. Lily would bounce into a chair, her golden curls bouncing and a naughty sparkle in her eyes. She'd clear her throat dramatically and then, like magic, belt out * "My heart will go on * in her best Celine Dion impersonation. The adults would go wild, clapping and yelling as if they were at a live concert. Mom and Dad were beaming with joy, and Dad frequently wiped a tear from his eye. Meanwhile, I'd stand to the side, attempting to blend in with the shrubs. It wasn't that I didn't want to participate, but every time I opened my mouth to sing, it sounded like a cat being strangled. What about poetry? Forget about it. The words would jumble on my tongue, leaving me red-faced and stammering. My family has whispered that I am so unlike my sister. Not only were the relatives present, but Mom and Dad made it plain who the family's star was. While Lily was shuttled between ballet courses, singing lessons, and art workshops, I was left to my own devices. Not that I cared much. I sought refuge in the dusty old books that adorned our shelf. The only person who appeared to understand me was Great Aunt Maggie. She'd discover me hidden behind the garage or in the treehouse, nose buried in a book. "What adventure are you on today, Cameron?" she'd ask, snuggling down next to me. I would look up, thankful for the interruption. "Oh, just reading about ancient Egypt," I'd say, showing her the cover of my most recent find. Maggie nodded, her eyes gleaming. "You have a good head on your shoulders, girl. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those moments with Maggie were like a balm for my soul. She did not ask me to perform or be anything other than who I was. With her, I could simply be Cameron, the quiet bookish girl who preferred the company of paper and ink to the commotion of family gatherings. But, as much as I treasured those memories, they couldn't take away the agony of being the neglected child. Every time Lily learned a new song or received an award, my parents would lavish her with praise and gifts. New clothes, the latest electronics, you name it. Lily got it, what about me? I received hand-me-downs and signs of frustration. School became my refuge. While I wasn't the most popular student, I did find my rhythm in class. I wasn't content to simply sit there and let the lessons wash over me. No, I was determined to understand what the lecturers stated. "Mrs. Thompson," I'd say after class, my voice soft but steady, "could you please explain that bit about mitosis again? I didn't quite understand it." She would smile, clearly pleased with my involvement. "Of course, Cameron. Why don't we discuss it together?" If a teacher couldn't spare the time, I'd request book recommendations. My backpack quickly became overloaded with extra reading material. I'd stay up late studying those books, trying to master every subject. All of that hard work paid off. By the time I entered high school, I was at the top of my class. For once in my life, I was the best at something. I even made a few friends, other bookworms who didn't mind my quiet personality. As graduation approached, our home became Lily Central. Mom was continuously assisting her in putting together her portfolio for the advertising and public relations department at a prestigious college. "Oh honey, this campaign idea is perfect," Mom would enthuse when she looked at Lily's work. "You're so talented." I'd roll my eyes and retreat to my room, engrossed in my studies. But one night, over yet another family meal centered on Lily's college ambitions, something in me broke. "I'm going to college too," I blurted out. "I want to study management." The hush that ensued was deafening. Then, to my surprise and hurt, they all started laughing. "Oh sweetie," Mom murmured, brushing away her tears. "We don't have the money for that. You'll need to acquire a job following graduation. You're simply not as talented as your sister." I felt as though I had been slapped. But I'm the top student in my class," I stammered, angry and embarrassed. "I get straight A's." I raced inside my room and returned with my report card, slamming it on the table. They all leaned in to look, their eyes widening in amazement. "Well, I'll be damned," Dad said, scratching his head. "When did this happen?" "It's been happening for years," I snapped. "Not that any of you ever noticed." Mom had the decency to show shame. "Cameron, we had no idea," she began, but Dad interrupted her. "Look, that doesn't do anything. We spent all of our savings on Lily's education. There is nothing left for you, Cameron. I'm sorry, but that's simply how things are. You'll work at my cousin Frank's restaurant after graduation." I turned and ran, ignoring their calls. I rushed up the stairs to my room, slamming the door so hard that the walls trembled. As I dropped into my bed, sobbing coursing through my body, I felt something inside me tighten. "Fine," I thought, stiffening my fists. "If they don't help me, I'll find another method. I'll show them all Cameron can do." The following several months were a blur. Lily left for college, accompanied by sad goodbyes and triumphant parental embraces. Meanwhile, I redoubled my efforts in my studies, aiming to graduate at the top of my class. During this period, I found myself spending increasingly more time with Great Aunt Maggie. Her little pleasant abode became my safe haven from the stress at home. One afternoon, while we sipped tea in her bright kitchen, she asked me the question I had been dreading. "So Cameron," she asked, her sympathetic eyes fixated on my, "what are your plans after graduation?" I looked into my teacup, fighting back tears. I'm not sure, Aunt Maggie. Mom and Dad will not assist me with college. They claim there is no money left after paying for Lily's education. Maggie was quiet for a time before reaching across the table and squeezing my hand. "Cameron, dear, I have some savings. I would like to give these to you for college. You're as brilliant as a whip, and I'll be damned if I waste that brain of yours." The reality of her words struck me like a tidal wave. I fell into tears, stunned by her generosity and the understanding that my dreams had not died after all. "Thank you," I sobbed and threw my arms around her. "Thank you so much, Aunt Maggie." The months passed quickly, and before I knew it I was going across the stage at graduation, diploma in hand. As I searched the crowd, I noticed Aunt Maggie smiling at me. My parents were also present, looking proud but uncomfortable. Mom strolled in one evening as I was poring over college brochures. "Cameron, honey," she continued, her voice syrupy sweet, "your father's cousin Frank has called. He has a waitressing position for you at his restaurant. Isn't this exciting?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom, I won't need that job. I am going to college." Dad appeared at the doorway, unhappy. "And how exactly do you plan to pay for that?" "Aunt Maggie is assisting me," I stated, my chin held high. "She's giving me her savings for tuition." The stunned hush that ensued was almost hilarious. Then, to my surprise, Dad's face became red with fury. "Absolutely not," he exclaimed. "If Maggie has any money to spare, it should go to Lily. She wants a car for her advertising job following graduation next year." I couldn't believe what I heard. Are you serious? I spit. This is my chance to get an education, to make something of myself. Don't be selfish, Cameron, Mom interjected. Your sister needs that money more than you do. No, I replied, my voice shaky but firm. This is my money now, and I'm spending it on education. End of discussion. From then on, living at home became miserable. My parents either ignored me totally or yelled at me for the tiniest things. The tension was suffocating. After a particularly scathing dispute, I called Aunt Maggie in tears and revealed everything. Pack your bags, sweetheart, she stated without hesitation. You're moving in with me. The next day I packed my belongings into a cab and drove away, watching my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. As I drove up to Aunt Maggie's house, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The summer went by in a blur of preparation, and before I knew it I was walking onto the campus of State University. Thanks to my excellent grades and Aunt Maggie's generosity, I was accepted into the management program of my dreams. My first day of school, I felt like I was flying on air. As I sat in my introduction to business course, taking in every word, I couldn't help but think, I did it. I'm actually here. Meanwhile, Lily began her final year at her posh institution. I hadn't heard much from her or my parents since I moved out, but I tried not to be concerned. I was too busy enjoying my newfound independence and the exhilaration of college life. However, around a month into the semester, Aunt Maggie phoned me. Cameron, dear, she started tentatively, I think you should sit down for this. My pulse raced as she told me about the family drama I had missed. Lily apparently showed up at home unexpectedly, expressing her decision to drop out of college. What's the reason? She was pregnant. Aunt Maggie claimed Lily had been cavalier about the whole situation. Oh, don't worry, she'd said, tossing her hair. The baby's father is wealthy. We'll get married soon. But the narrative did not stop there. It came out that Lily's boyfriend was not as serious as she imagined. When he discovered she'd also been sleeping with his pal, all hell broke loose. They didn't even know who the father was. Aunt Maggie sighed. I sat there, phone pressed against my ear, trying to digest everything. Part of me felt a sick sense of satisfaction. The golden child had fallen from her pedestal. But ultimately, I was sad for Lily and the mess she had gotten herself into. The saga continued for several months. Aunt Maggie kept me informed of all the gossip from the family parties I no longer attended. When Lily's kid was born, a DNA test proved that her boyfriend was the father. But instead of the fairy tale wedding Lily had hoped for, he just agreed to pay child support. The ultimate blow came when Lily, desperate for employment, accepted a position as a server at Uncle Frank's restaurant, the same job my parents had tried to force on me. As I hung up the phone, I experienced a flurry of emotions. A small, petty part of me wanted to brag, to rub my accomplishment in my family's faces. But ultimately, I felt deeply grateful for where I was and how far I'd come. 4 years passed in a flurry of lectures, tests, and late-night study sessions. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation, clutching my hard-earned management degree. As I searched the crowd, I noticed Aunt Maggie smiling at me, tears of pride in her eyes. My outstanding grades and glowing references from my instructors helped me obtain a job as a manager at the Gilded Fork, one of the city's most prominent restaurants. The compensation exceeded my expectations, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly accomplished. I knew what I wanted to accomplish after receiving my first paycheck. I marched into the electronics store and purchased the most recent smartphone for Aunt Maggie. Her face brightened up as I showed it to her. "Oh, Cameron," she said, turning the sleek device over in her hands. "This is too much." I grinned and pulled out my own phone. "Not at all. Now let me show you how to utilize it." I spent the following 3 weeks teaching Aunt Maggie the ins and outs of social media. She took to it like a duck to water, particularly enjoying Facebook's video feature. Her page quickly filled up with videos of her garden, cat, and the fabled apple pie in various stages of preparation. During my lunch breaks, I'd view her videos and give comments and likes. It was our method of remaining in touch, even when work kept me busy. My phone buzzed one day when I was getting ready for the dinner rush. I looked at it, astonished to find my mother's name on the screen. We hadn't spoken for years. "Cameron," she said hesitantly. "We were hoping you might come over to talk." After a lengthy delay, I consented. That Sunday, I was standing on the porch of my boyhood house, my hand hanging over the doorbell. Before I could press it, the door opened. "Cameron!" My mother drew me into a close hug. "Oh, sweetie, it's so good to see you." Inside, I found my father, Lily, and a toddler who I assumed was my niece. The atmosphere was tense, but not aggressive, as I had imagined. "You look good, kiddo," Dad observed, his tone stern yet loving. "We hear you're doing well for yourself." I nodded, being apprehensive. "I am. I currently work as a manager at the Gilded Fork." Their eyes opened at the restaurant's name. Mother cleared her throat. "That's amazing, sweetie. Actually, that is one of the reasons we wanted to speak with you." Over the next hour, they apologized for how they had treated me, confessing their mistake in dismissing my potential. Then came the true reason for the gathering. "Cameron," Mom remarked, looking at Lily. We were wondering if you might be able to help Lily get a job at your restaurant." I looked at my sister, who was bouncing her daughter on her knee. She refused to meet my gaze. "I'll see what I can do," I concluded. "No promises, but I'll ask." True to my word, I spoke with the restaurant owner, Mr. Reeves, about Lily. To my astonishment, he agreed to give her a chance as administrator. Lily began the following week. I watched her intently, half expecting her to fail or make trouble, but to my surprise, she excelled. She was punctual and efficient, and her customers adored her charm. As the weeks went, I found myself becoming more relaxed with her. We weren't best buddies by any means, but we had a good professional connection. Just when I thought I had it all figured out, the universe decided to throw me another curveball, this time a good one. Mr. Reeves called me into his office one day. My heart raced, and I wondered whether I had done something wrong. Instead, he winked at me and asked, "Cameron, how would you like to help me expand the business?" Before I knew it, I was overseeing the opening of 3 more restaurants. My days became a blur of staff meetings, food tastings, and data crunching. It was grueling, exhilarating, and all I could have imagined. The promotion included a large pay increase, and I suddenly found myself with more money than I knew what to do with. That's when my parents' calls started. At first, it was just minor issues. "The roof is leaking," Mom would say, her tone apprehensive. "We were wondering if you might be able to help out a little." I was amazed at how nice it felt to say yes and fix their difficulties with a simple transfer of dollars. It began with the roof, then a new water heater, and before long, I was financing a full home restoration. As their financial position improved, thanks to my monthly allowance, the famed family parties resumed. However, when I attended, things were different. "Have you heard about Cameron's latest project?" Mom would gush to her family. "She is opening a new restaurant downtown. We are so proud of her." When I caught Lily's eye across the room, she gave me a little smile. She was also doing well, having been appointed to head administrator at the Gilded Fork. "My girls," Dad would say, putting one arm around each of us. Both of them making their old man proud. A part of me wanted to be bitter, to remind them of how they had treated me previously, but a greater part savored in the warmth of their approval, something I'd coveted for so long. As I drove home that night, I felt a wave of contentment rush over me. After all these years, I finally got everything I'd always wanted. Professional achievement and the love and appreciation of my family. I was the golden kid now, but more importantly, I was my own woman, able to stand on my own 2 feet. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when my world collapsed around me. I was sipping my coffee and surfing through Facebook when I noticed Aunt Maggie had posted a new video. It was from one of the family events I had missed because of job obligations. I smiled and clicked play, expecting to witness the usual scenes of laughter and merriment. What I saw instead caused my blood to run cold. My parents appeared in full color, their cheeks flushed with drink and self-righteousness. Mom was gesticulating madly, her voice slurred yet clear. "And Cameron, that ungrateful little freeloader," she said. "She rarely provides us anything. We're not made of money, you understand?" Dad joined in, his cheeks flushed. "That's correct. We're doing okay, thanks to Lily. She's the one who keeps that pricey restaurant going. Cameron only rides on her coattails." The video proceeded with several families nodding and expressing their own criticisms. Lily sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable but not challenging them. As the film concluded, I sat there shocked. How could they? After everything I'd done for them, all the money I'd given them, how could they turn around and say such horrible, false things? With trembling palms, I scrolled down to the comments. I noticed a torrent of messages from my folks. "Maggie, erase this video right away. You have no right to post that. Take it down immediately." But Aunt Maggie's reaction brought me to tears. "I'm not sure how to delete videos, and even if I could, I wouldn't. It's time everyone knew the truth about how you treat Cameron. She's the one that helps you, and this is how you reciprocate her kindness. Shame on you both." I stayed there for what seemed like hours, watching the video and rereading the comments. The treachery struck deep, reopening scars that I believed were healed. I finally picked up the phone and dialed Aunt Maggie's number. "Oh, Cameron dear," she replied in response, her voice filled with sorrow. I take it you've seen the video? Yeah, I said, my throat scratchy from crying. I cannot believe it, Aunt Maggie. How could they? I could hear the rage in her voice when she responded. They have always been like this, Cameron. You just haven't been there to witness it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but it might be for the best. You deserve to know the truth. We talked for hours, Aunt Maggie supporting me while I alternated between disbelief, rage, and grief. As darkness fell, I reached a decision. I'm cutting them off, I told Aunt Maggie, my voice steady despite my sadness. There's no more money. There is no more aid. They made their bed and now they may lie in it. The days following the video disclosure were some of the most difficult of my life. My phone was continuously buzzing with messages and calls from my folks, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Their comments, so nasty and false, ran on repeat in my thoughts. After a week of stillness, I wrote them a short, frigid text. I've watched the video, I know exactly what you think of me, do not contact me again. The money stops now. Their responses poured in immediately. At first they apologized. Cameron, we're very sorry, we did not mean any of it. Please forgive us? But as the days passed and I remained silent, their melody shifted. We are your parents. You owe us. Each message twisted the knife deeper, but I remained steadfast. I had given them numerous opportunities, but they had all turned them down. It was time to stop the loop. Lily, strangely, remained out of it. At work, she was the epitome of efficiency and professionalism. If she felt any anger at losing our parents' financial assistance, she didn't show it. Our interactions were pleasant but distant. I'm not taking sides, she told me one day, following a staff meeting. It's between you and them. I nodded, respecting her impartiality, even if a part of me wished she would advocate for me. But I understood, she needed to focus about her own child right now. As the weeks progressed to months, I found myself relying greatly on Aunt Maggie. Our Sunday video conversations were the highlight of my week. She'd regale me with stories from her garden or her most recent baking escapade, delivering a much-needed dose of normalcy in the midst of my chaotic life. You're doing the right thing, Cameron, she'd tell me when I had reservations. Don't let them manipulate you anymore. To my astonishment, more relatives began to approach out. Cousin Sarah, who had always been nice to me at family occasions, wrote me a meaningful email. I watched the video. Cameron, I want you to know that I believe you're fantastic. What you've accomplished, how you've assisted everyone, you're an inspiration. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Uncle Bob, Dad's brother, called me unexpectedly. Kid, I've watched you grow into this beautiful woman. Your parents are fools if they don't recognize how unique you are. Keep in mind that you have relatives on your side. These words of encouragement were like balm to my broken heart. I understood that, while I had lost my parents, I had gained a family that valued me for who I was. As the year came to a close, Mr. Reeves invited me into his office. I went in anxious, wondering if the family stress had influenced my professional performance. Instead, he smiled warmly and announced, Cameron, I am retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO of the restaurant group. I stood there, stunned into silence. Finally, I stammered out, Are you sure? He nodded, his eyes sparkling. I have never been more certain about anything in my life. You've earned it, Cameron. You are the reason this firm has thrived. It's time you took control. As I exited his office, my mind racing with possibilities, I realized something profound. The little girl who had been overlooked and undervalued had grown into a lady who had exceeded everyone's expectations, even her own. My wife cheated on me with our horrible neighbor while I was paralyzed, but a life-changing surgery gave me a second chance to rebuild my life. My name is Ethan John. In the last year or two, my life has been a roller coaster of unbelievable lows and surprising highs. It all began with a terrible accident that left me paralyzed and unable to move or talk. But this was only the beginning of my horror. What followed was a string of betrayals, abuse, and misery that nearly destroyed me. Despite everything, I managed to survive and even thrive. Here's my tale. I was involved in an accident. I was riding my motorcycle on a lovely afternoon when a truck driver, apparently unaware of me, pulled out onto the highway. The collision was terrible. I don't remember much of the impact, just a flash of metal and then darkness. When I awoke in the hospital, I was unable to move. I could not talk. I could scarcely blink. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. Lucky? That word struck me as a cruel joke at the moment. I was immobilized from the neck down, unable to do more than breathe and blink. I couldn't swallow without trouble. Going to the bathroom? Don't get me started on the humiliation. The only silver lining, if you can call it that, was the multi-million-dollar payout I received from the transportation firm. All of my medical expenditures were paid, and I would receive a monthly stipend to sustain my wife, Laura, and me for the rest of our lives. We were financially secure, thanks to my disability payments and Laura's job as a paralegal. But money could not repair what was broken within me. After 6 months in the hospital, I was finally allowed to return home. I believed things would improve once I was in familiar surroundings, but I was mistaken. That's when my life took a darker turn. How's that? The counselor inquired, staring at me. I'm quite ashamed. I don't think I can even remember what happened in those 6 months, I remarked, a tear running down my cheek. That's okay, she responded in response. Everything you say here will remain confidential. Remember that I'm here to help you heal. I nodded and took a glass of water before proceeding. Let us start with your marriage. Tell me a little about that. I told her about my marriage to Laura, how we met in college and got married after we graduated. I was only 25 years old when my injury occurred, and we had been married for 3 years. I worked as a mechanical engineer, and she was a paralegal at a large law company downtown. We were able to afford a spacious 3-bedroom apartment. Originally, we intended to convert one bedroom into a nursery. We both used the second bedroom as an office, but after my accident, the nursery became my room because it was spacious enough to house all of my medical equipment. Laura did her best to care for me for the first month or two, but it was evident that she wasn't up to the task, particularly with the bathroom. So she sought assistance. Greg and Callie Wallace, our neighbors, offered to help in any way they could. At the time, I considered them pals. Greg, an attorney at Laura's business, frequently drove her to work. Callie was a nurse at a nearby hospital, so she would check in on me from time to time to ensure I was okay. She even helped us get a home health nurse to check on me during the day. Laura was clearly not up to the task after a month, even with all of the assistance. That's when Greg stepped in. The counselor asked, yes. It began innocently enough, but I could see he had feelings for my wife. She frequently broke down crying, and he was always there to soothe her. I could hear them in the front room, making out on our couch. Then he would take her into our former master bedroom and have sex with her. But it didn't end there, did it? The counselor inquired. I shake my head. No, I replied. Afterward, he would come into my room to taunt me, telling me how he felt after screwing my wife. I saw the counselor's expression. Sorry, I apologized. Where was his wife during all of this? The counselor inquired. Was she working? Yes, she often worked strange shifts, and it wasn't unusual for her to be gone all night, working the graveyard shift. I see, the counselor replied. Go on. I took a big breath before proceeding. After about a month, he entered my room as Laura was taking a shower. I was so ashamed that I couldn't finish my statement. Did he abuse you? The counselor inquired. I nodded as I wiped the tears from my face. Yes, I said gently. How often did this happen? The counselor inquired. I'm not sure, maybe a couple of times every week for about 4 months. He even said he was going to invite some of his friends over to have fun with me. Did your wife know this was going on? The counselor inquired. I shrugged my shoulders. I do not know. She was never present when it happened. She'd always come by later and say how great it was to have people like Greg to look after me. I'll never forget the day he hauled in that blasted monitor and installed it on my dresser. He linked it up to a camera and made me watch while he screwed my wife. Laura thought it was great that he brought it in. When did the abuse stop? The counselor inquired. The day Dr. Victor stopped over to see me. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Laura invited Dr. Victor and my attorney into my room, just a few hours after Greg had abused me. Dr. Victor was an older, slightly shorter, balding man with a German accent. I reflected on the visit. Ethan, there's a Dr. Victor here to see you, Laura remarked as she led him into my room. Dr. Victor approached and introduced himself to me. He also introduced an assistant with a tablet. My lawyer, Jacob Harrison, was also present. Ethan, I'm Dr. Franklin Victor, and I'm here to discuss a possible treatment for your condition. He looked at Laura before proceeding. I'll take care of it from here, Missy, he explained. Please wait in the other room. She exited the room, but I noticed a concerned expression on her face. He returned my gaze, pulled up a chair and sat down, looked me in the eyes before responding. Now Ethan, allow me to explain. I manage a high-end research facility on Lake Arrowhead. We've been conducting revolutionary research on 3D bone restoration and nerve healing implants. I believe your situation is tailor-made for us. I glanced at your record, and I know how much damage you've sustained. he said. I believe we can help you regain the most, if not all, of your physical ability. Is this something you might be interested in? Please blink once to confirm and twice to deny. What else could I say about something like this? Of course. Of course, I did blink once. Good, he replied with a smile. Now, you must understand that this is all experimental, but we have received approval for human testing. Thanks to external grants, it will cost you nothing. That was fantastic news, but I was apprehensive about the experimentation. I know you're probably concerned about this being experimental, he continued as if he could read my mind. Don't be concerned about that. Even if the operation fails, you will not be any worse off than you are today. But I feel you are a good candidate, and I'm confident that everything will be all right. In fact, if we're as successful as I expect, you'll be stronger than you were before the accident. That gave me hope, so I listened as he described the operation. Essentially, he said that all of the damaged vertebrae would be replaced with vertebrae composed of a composite material that was stronger than the originals. In addition, the new vertebrae would be created using a 3D printer and data from my own body. In principle, the new bones would be perfect replicas of the old ones, albeit stronger. In addition, he would put tiny electrical implants to assist mend the injured nerves. The operation would take 3 to 4 hours, and the recuperation period could be several days, depending on how quickly I healed. Dr. Victor also stated that he had already evaluated the data from my stay and began the process of manufacturing the new bones. I hope you don't mind, he remarked. Initially, we wanted to explore if we could recreate the injured bone using data from your records. We chose to proceed with the surgery after determining that we could. When I was strong enough, he indicated I could start physical therapy, which may last a few weeks. So is this something you would like to try? The man inquired. Blink once for yes or twice for no. Of course, I did blink once. He smiled as he rubbed his hands together. Very good, he declared. He motioned his helper to join us. Please let Mr. John read the agreement. The assistant came over and held the tablet as I read the agreement. When I was finished, Dr. Victor asked whether I agreed again, ordering me to blink once to indicate yes. I blinked once. Very well, he remarked, asking his aide to have me electronically sign using my thumbprint. Once that was completed, Jacob countersigned to confirm that he had witnessed my approval to the operation. Are you ready to get started? He inquired. Of course, I did blink once. He smiled. Let's get going. Greg, we have everything you'll need at our facilities. He directed to his aide to take me out of the apartment and into a huge van waiting in the parking area. Laura stopped us on our way out. Where are you going? She inquired. Dr. Victor stared at her before responding, Your husband has agreed to a procedure that could help him get back on his feet. Where are you taking him? She inquired. How long will he be gone? How much will this cost? We are transporting him to my facility on Lake Arrowhead, the doctor stated. He may be gone for several weeks, depending on how well he responds to the treatment and rehabilitation. His doctor and lawyer are well aware of what is going on and they have given their approval, as has your spouse. Cost is not a concern. Now if you don't mind, let's get started. Wait, I haven't seen any agreement and I don't even know what's going to happen. He doesn't need your approval, Mrs. John, Jacob said. He is crippled, not incompetent. Everything was explained to him, and he gave his permission. You want your husband to get healthy, right? Yes, of course I do, she replied. I could sense a hint of shame in her voice. Can I at least come see him? Perhaps after the procedure, when he's up to having visitors, you can come, the doctor suggested. Otherwise, you should probably stay right here for now. We will be in touch. Perhaps now is a good moment to say farewell and wish your husband well. Laura moved in front of me and kissed me on the lips. Get well, honey. Let me know when I can come to see you, okay? Of course, I couldn't say anything, but I felt hot inside. Dr. Victor and his aide rolled me out to the van. Once I was inside, the helper took the wheel and we were on our way. I could see Laura standing in the parking lot, watching us depart. I had no idea what she was thinking, but I felt like I'd just been freed from a hostage situation. A few hours later, we arrived at the facility and I was led into a very lovely room where many nurses began prepping me for the treatment. I hope you don't mind, Ethan, but I thought it best to get started right away, Victor, your doctor remarked. He turned to face the nurses. Once you have him prepared, please bring him to the operating room. Yes, Dr. Victor, one of the nurses replied. Okay, Ethan, I will leave you in the capable hands of your nurses, and I'll see you in the OR, he said before leaving. Soon, they had me undressed, bathed and dressed in a robe that revealed my back. They put me on a stretcher and transported me to the operating room, where 3 extremely large orderlies carefully scooped me up and laid me face down on the table. The anesthesiologist performed his duties, and the last thing I heard before leaving was Dr. Victor saying, "Oh my." I had no idea what he was referring to. I awoke still face down, but this time I was in some sort of device that kept me immobilized. I had a tube down my mouth and an IV implanted into my arm. My right arm was fitted with a blood pressure bracelet. Suddenly, the device rotated and I found myself looking up at Dr. Victor. "You're awake," he stated. "Good. You'll be pleased to hear that the operation went smoothly. We'll have to keep you motionless for a few days to ensure proper healing. After all, we had to do a lot of replacing. You may have tingling or itching in your back. This is normal. That means the implants are performing their function. Both the nurses and I will keep a careful eye on you. Don't be scared. The apparatus you're in will rotate your body periodically. Just try to relax for now, okay? We'll talk in a few days." After that, he checked my vital signs, gave the nurses some instructions, and left. Relax, what else was I going to do? He was correct about one thing. I did feel a tingling feeling in the middle of my back, which irritated me to no end. I also felt itchy and wanted to scratch, but I couldn't. As unpleasant as it was refreshing to feel something for the first time in almost a year. That night, 2 nurses came in to wash me down. I could feel them washing my legs, buttocks, and back. I was more than startled, I was shocked. I could really feel what they were doing. They rolled over the bed and started washing me from the front. That's when I caught a good look at them. They were both very young and gorgeous. One had shoulder-length blonde hair, while the other was brunette. As they bathed me, I felt something different. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I couldn't move my head, but I noticed a smile on their faces as they observed me. The blonde gazed at me. "Well, I'm no doctor, but it looks like something is working down here," she added with a smile. They giggled slightly but continued to do their work. They finished what they were doing and departed the room, but not before offering me some encouragement. I ended up being in the device for 4 days. The days were pretty much the same. Every morning, I had x-rays done, and nurses would massage my arms and legs. Later in the day, I received a thorough sponge bath. As the days passed, I became more aware of what was happening to me. On the 4th day, Dr. Victor came into my room and examined me attentively. He sat down next to me, pulled out a pin, and immediately inserted it in my calf. I felt something and made a noise. I couldn't say anything because I still had a tube in my throat. He stared at me. "Did you feel that?" he inquired. I blinked once and attempted to nod my head, but I couldn't because it was still strapped down. He smiled. "Very good." He asked me to try moving my toes. I was surprised to learn that I could. Then he instructed me to move my fingers, and I did. "Outstanding," he said. He checked my x-rays thoroughly and summoned some nurses. "I think it's time we got Mr. John out of this contraption." They took the tube out of my throat, removed my catheter, reconnected all of the tubes, and released me from the device. Then they carried me to a gurney and took me to my room, where they put me in a bed. Dr. Victor spoke with the nurses before sitting down next to me. "I can't tell you how pleased I am with your results," he told me. "We will need to start your physical therapy right away, and we will begin with some exercises you may do in your bed. I don't want to put too much pressure on your back right now." He inserted a cup with a straw into my mouth. "Take a drink." I did, and it felt great going down my throat. "Try to say something," he advised when I finished swallowing. "Wow," I muttered. He laughed and nodded his head. "That will do," he said. "How do you feel?" "Like a new man," I replied, my voice still feeble. I could feel my eyes beginning to water. This was the first time I'd been able to do or say anything since my accident. He grabbed a tissue and wiped my eyes. "I understand this is an extremely emotional moment for you, Ethan. For now, I want you to relax. Don't overdo it. Your back still has to heal, but the implants appear to be operating properly. I'm concerned that you've lost some muscle mass since the accident, so we'll set you up with a diet and exercise plan to assist you regain muscle function. Now I'd like to present you to the staff members who will be looking after you." He waved his hand and several young women entered the room. "I'm Emily, your nutritionist. Now will be your physical therapist," he explained, indicating to a short-haired muscular blonde who nodded once. "Rachel will be your day nurse," he announced, pointing to a tiny woman with short brown hair. "And this is Megan, your night nurse," he explained, gesturing to a taller, red-haired woman. Her eyes twinkled as she smiled at me. "Nice to meet you," I said. "Now, if there is anything you need, please feel free to let us know," the doctor remarked. We all live here at the facility, so we're available 24 hours a day. He motioned for the women to leave the room briefly before returning to me. Ethan, I need to talk to you about something. This is a difficult subject, so please let me know if you feel uncomfortable. I'm curious, I stated. I detected a good degree of rectal damage when we began the surgery on you. I also collected samples of what I found in that region. I'm not here to condemn, but I was wondering. No, I murmured, feeling ashamed. I see, he replied. So you were abused? Tears started to pour down my cheeks. Yes, I was able to get out. He cleaned my face before speaking. You are aware that I have an obligation to disclose this to the authorities. In this state, abusing a disabled person is a felony, as well as a hate crime. I collected samples of what I discovered, and the lab is conducting an analysis that includes DNA. Do you know who did this to you? Yes, I said gently. Was your wife involved? He inquired. I do not know. She was never present when he did it. I see, he replied. Are you willing to name the person who did this to you? I nodded my head. Yes, I informed him. Good, I will call the authorities once we have completed the analysis. In the interim, I'll connect you with a counselor. Thanks. You are welcome. Now, shall we focus on getting you back on your feet? They fitted a contraption to the head of my enormous bed that allowed me to lift weights while lying down, but Dr. Victor didn't want me to use it right away. For the first week, they simply had me do hand exercises and brought in a machine to perform leg workouts. Na proved to be quite the therapist. As she yelled for cadence, I pushed with one foot and then the other. I spy drivey, she retorted in German, and I strained to keep up. I couldn't help but notice her accent was much stronger than Dr. Victor's. She would have made an excellent drill coach, I thought, as she urged me to move faster. Gut, she exclaimed. We'll feed you some protein to get your muscles back in condition. Every Fräulein in town will be after you, and probably a frustrated Hausfrau or two, she said with a wicked giggle. This gets us to the present. She set down her pen and looked at the counselor, who had carefully listened to my narrative. Ethan, the next few weeks will be very challenging for you. Frankly, I'm not sure which will be more difficult, the physical or mental recuperation. I'm delighted you feel comfortable talking to me about this, and I hope you take action against the people who harmed you. They breached the law and must be dealt with. I want you to know that I'm here for you, and you may contact me at any time. Okay? Okay, thanks. With that, the session was over, and I was taken back to my room. A few of the days later, Dr. Victor entered my room, leading a couple of men in dark suits. I realized Jacob was with them. After chasing the nurses out of my room, the doctor sat down beside me. Ethan, these men are here to talk about your circumstances at home. I also called your lawyer. I hope you do not mind. Not at all, I replied. Jacob appeared stunned when he heard me say, You're looking much better, Ethan, he murmured, standing over me. I grinned as I reached out to shake his hand. Surprised, he agreed and shook my hand. Thank you, I am feeling lot better. I can now eat on my own. He is doing quite well, Dr. Victor added. If all goes well, he'll be even stronger than he was before the accident. That's good to hear, Jacob responded. Ethan, this is Agent Cole and Agent Davis from the State Police. They are come to take your statement. Are you ready to speak with them? Absolutely. The three guys took up chairs, and Agent Cole produced a recorder. Mr. John, I hope you don't mind if we record this interview, he said. Not at all, I replied. They spent the next hour taking notes and asking questions as I described the past 4 months of abuse at the hands of someone I believed was a friend. This was the third time I had to admit what had happened to me, and it was equally humiliating and agonizing. And you say this Mr. Wallace is the man who assaulted you repeatedly? Agent Cole inquired. Yes, I answered. I have the sample I took from Mr. John, along with the analysis, Dr. Victor stated. There was considerable rectal injury that needed to be addressed. That's all in my report. Agent Cole stated. We'll need to take that into evidence. Dr. Victor nodded his head. Tell me, Mr. John, Agent Cole asked, glancing back at me. Is this the same Greg Wallace who works at McMaster and Williams law firm? Yes, it is, I answered. And your wife works at this firm as well? Yes, she does, I informed him. And you allege that the two of them have been engaged in an affair during this time? He inquired. That's correct, I replied. Was she ever present when the assaults took place? Agent Cole inquired. I shake my head. She was at the apartment, but we never shared a room, as far as I recall. Indeed, she appeared to believe that he was assisting me in some way. I see, the agent replied. Nevertheless, we'll have to bring her in as an accessory. Even if she wasn't physically in the same room, it's hard to believe she didn't notice anything was wrong. Ethan, are you certain about all of this? Jacob inquired, surprised. I know Greg personally, and I find it hard to believe he would do something like this. Maybe you don't know him as well as you think, I remarked rhetorically. You have Dr. Victor's report, and you have the sample. I can't explain it, Jacob replied. I take it you're going to want a divorce from your wife. Absolutely, I said, nodding. Okay, I'll start the paperwork. I'll contact you before we file. I also want a restraining order, I informed him. I don't want either of them anywhere near me, and I sure as heck don't want them in my apartment. As of right now, we'll be treating your apartment as a potential crime scene, Agent Cole informed us. How much longer is Mr. John going to be here? He inquired. Hard to say, the doctor replied. At least 5 more weeks, possibly longer. It depends on how well he reacts to the treatment and therapy. Very well, Cole replied. At least he'll be safe for a while longer. He turned to face his buddy. Get a search warrant for the John apartment and arrest warrants for Mrs. John and Mr. Wallace. The other agent nodded and left the room. Cole turned around to face me. Just so you know, Mr. John, Cole explained, we're going to charge your wife as an accessory. If it comes down to it, are you willing to testify against her in court? Yes, I said. Okay, he replied quietly. Davis had returned and gave a thumbs up. The warrant will be ready when we get back to the office. Cole nodded and packed his gear, including the sample he received from Dr. Victor. We'll be in touch, Mr. John, he added. I hope everything works out for you. Thank you, I replied. After they went, Jacob approached me. Ethan, you are making serious charges. Greg might lose everything. His job, his license, and possibly even his wife. Are you very convinced about this? I'm 100% confident, Jacob. I honestly do not care if he loses everything. In fact, given what he has done, he deserves to lose everything. I hope you are on my side in this. Tell me right now if you aren't, and I'll get another lawyer. I am on your side, Ethan. It's only, I don't know. It's difficult for me to believe. I met his wife and ate in their home. I've never seen anything to indicate he'd do something so dumb. Well, he did, I explained. Can I sue him as well? I don't see any reason why not, Jacob responded. We reside in one of the few states where alienation of affection cases are permitted, so I will investigate that as well. However, you should be aware that they rarely travel far. I genuinely apologize for this, Ethan. I had no idea. It is not your fault. I had no means to let anyone know. We exchanged goodbyes, and he went. I felt slightly better knowing that something was going to be done. The next few weeks passed fast. Na had me standing up in no time. At first, she made me walk on a treadmill. Then she made me work with weights. Emily put me on a high protein and fiber diet, and I started to observe my muscle mass returning to normal. Meanwhile, the authorities were preparing a case against Greg and Laura. Jacob believed it was prudent to keep the divorce papers until she was arrested. Agent Cole and Davis returned several times with state prosecutors, seeking more comprehensive information from me about the assaults. They informed me that the analysis confirmed that Dr. Victor had retrieved Greg's DNA from me. Jacob also hired a private investigator to acquire evidence of their adultery. It wasn't tough because the two of them were very open about their romance. Greg's wife, C, appeared to be unaware of their actions, as she worked nights when they messed around and slept during the day when they were at work. After gathering proof and completing the paperwork, Jacob came out to review it with me. He intended to sue for divorce on grounds of adultery, neglect, and cruelty. He had lots of images, videos, and audio evidence to back up his claim. I didn't want to hear or see what they had done, especially because I'd seen and heard enough about them to last a lifetime. He also had papers against Greg and intended to sue the firm they worked for because Laura was technically his subordinate and Greg had plainly broken company policy. Furthermore, he intended to denounce Greg to the state bar organization and had papers prepared accusing him of multiple ethics violations. I couldn't help but notice that Laura never phoned the facility or came out to see how I was doing. Apparently, she and Greg were too busy screwing about to notice me. Oh well, I figured, this too would pass. And it did. After 2 months, the authorities raided the firm and detained them. Jacob's process server was also present, delivering the paperwork to all parties involved. My lawyer even contacted the media, which obtained footage of the 2 cheaters being placed in the back of police cruisers. Shocked by the charges and evidence we had against Greg, The business acted fast and settled with Jacob for the majority of what we requested. They also fired both of them and reported Greg to the state bar. CE learned of the arrest that day when Greg called her from the county prison, telling her he was in jail and needed her to be in court for his arraignment so she could post bail. Agent Colin Davis met with Dr. Victor, and the three of them took me to the courthouse for my arraignment. CA noticed me as I was brought in for the hearing and ran up to me. "How is he?" she questioned Dr. Victor. I looked up to her. "Better," I replied, seeing her expression. It had been a year since she last heard me talk. "Haven't you heard? Your husband has abused me on several occasions during the last 4 months. At the same time, he has been banging Laura." "You did not know?" "Oh my God," she exclaimed. "I did not know, Ethan. Please believe me, I had no idea what was happening. I've also filed for divorce from Laura and am suing Greg for alienation of affection. If you like, I may offer you my attorney's name in case you decide to file for divorce." "Damn right. I'm divorcing the son of a," she explained. We entered the courthouse and saw the sheriffs bring Greg and Laura in, both dressed in orange jumpsuits, with their wrists and feet shackled and joined to another chain around their waists. They both looked terrible. The state prosecutor requested that both be remanded without bail, citing Greg's potential flight risk and a restraining order against Laura. He also informed the judge that I was going through medical treatment and had filed for divorce. The prosecutor expressed anxiety that Greg would physically retaliate against me. The judge reviewed the documentation in front of him and agreed, ordering them both imprisoned without bail until the hearing, which he scheduled for the following week. As they took Greg and Laura out, she noticed me seated in the back of the courtroom. Her eyes widened as I raised one hand, middle finger out. She caught up to me after Agent Colin Davis rolled me out of court. She halted them and knelt down to speak with me. "Ethan, I'm really sorry about everything. I honestly didn't know." "That's all right, C," I said. "How long are you going to be gone?" she inquired. I shrugged my shoulders. "I don't know," I replied. "Perhaps a couple more weeks. They actually did a great job. I can even walk around now." "That's great. Please stay in touch and let me know how you're doing," CA said. "I will, C," I said. "We really need to go now, miss," Agent Cole stated. CA nodded and stepped up. "I understand. Take care of yourself, Ethan," she said. "Thanks, C," I replied as Agent Cole wheeled me to the van. When we returned to the facility, I was escorted to the physical therapy room, where Na was waiting for me. "About time you showed up," she remarked. "Time to begin." She pushed me through my paces and even gave me extra workouts to compensate for being late. I was sore when she finished with me, but I felt amazing. Megan stayed after dinner to check my vitals and complete her papers. When she was finished, she approached the bed, made sure I was comfortable, sat down, and looked at me for a few moments. Something appeared to be bothering her. "Is everything okay?" I remarked. "You seem to be thinking about something." "I was just wondering about something," she explained. "What?" "Do you find me attractive?" she inquired. "Absolutely. I think you're a wonderful girl and an excellent nurse." "Why?" "It's just, you haven't made a pass at me the entire time you've been here. I was wondering if I had done anything to anger you or if you didn't think me attractive." I smiled at her before replying. "I'm actually very attracted to you," I told you. "It's simply that, for one thing, I'm still married, and secondly, I'm relearning how to move around. I haven't been able to speak for a year. Besides, how about your other patients?" "You're my only patient," she explained quietly. "Dr. Victor is very particular about who he assigns to the night shift." "I see. So, in addition to being a medical genius and a miracle worker, Dr. Victor is also a matchmaker." She laughed at that. "It has happened before," she added. "Well, Megan, I tend to have a soft spot for shy, attractive redheads. And I'm getting divorced, so there's that." She grinned broadly and her eyes twinkled. "Would it be okay if I kissed you goodnight?" she inquired. "Definitely," I said. She leaned in and softly kissed me. After a second, the delicate kiss evolved into something more sensual, with our tongues battling in one another's lips. When she broke the kiss, I felt something. "I am here for you all night, every night. If you ever need anything, call me, okay? I know you're not ready to make love, but I'd love to just spend time with you," Megan murmured quietly. "I will, I promise," I replied. She smiled and softly exited the room. I fell asleep thinking about what she said, with images of red-headed angels dancing through my mind all night. The next several days sped by, with Na working me even harder. I discovered that I could walk many miles on the treadmill, and my muscles had improved to the point where I could bench press more weight than ever before. The daily X-rays revealed that my replacement vertebrae were performing even better than Dr. Victor had projected, with the implants repairing nearly all of the damaged nerves. Megan kept me company most evenings by lying on the bed with me and watching television, or simply talking. We would frequently share a bowl of popcorn while watching a movie and snuggle up together, the bowl on our laps. We always finished the evening with a goodnight kiss. I began to feel like a high school boy on a date with the most attractive girl in school. On top of that, I was falling hard for her. By the time Agent Cole and Davis arrived to pick me up for the main portion of Laura and Greg's trial, I no longer required the wheelchair, but Dr. Victor insisted that I use it nevertheless to ensure that I did not injure myself. He accompanied me as well, not only as a witness to my injuries, but also to ensure that I returned home safely. I sat in my chair directly behind the prosecutor, with Dr. Victor beside me. Laura and Greg entered the room and sat down next to their defense counsel. They looked over at me before whispering to their attorney. CA sat behind them, but she didn't seem happy. The jury, which had been chosen the day before, was seated, and the judge entered with the bailiff, issuing the order for everyone to stand. Using the rail in front of me for support, I rose up and noted Greg and Laura's shocked expressions. When the judge entered, he gave the order to sit and we all sat down. Dr. Victor calmly inquired if I was all right, and I nodded yes. The judge began the hearings by reading the lengthy list of allegations, noting that Greg and Laura had both pleaded not guilty. After both sides had finished their opening comments, the court went to the prosecution attorney, who called me as his first witness. Dr. Victor walked beside me to ensure I didn't collapse and then returned to his seat. Greg and Laura exchanged stunned looks as I sat in the witness chair. They were even more surprised when I talked after the bailiff had sworn me in to tell the truth. The prosecutor got up and walked up to me. He started by complimenting me on my improvement, then asked questions about my accident and the year I spent as a quadriplegic. I realized what he was doing. By asking these questions, he was informing the jury about my physical state before I was treated at Dr. Victor's facility. The majority of the inquiries at this point were on my home life. How Laura tried but was unable to care for me, and how she was able to arrange for home health care experts to care for me during the day. And during any of this time, did your wife ever attempt to see to your emotional needs? The prosecuting attorney questioned. No, sir, I said. Did she ever attempt to please you in any way? He asked her. No, she did not, I replied. Had she tried, would she have been successful? Wondered the man. I shake my head. No, I had no feeling from the neck down. I see, he replied. Did she ever hug you or kiss you or spend time with you, maybe reading a book or watching television? I considered my response carefully, but I couldn't recall her doing anything similar. She sometimes gave me a peck on the cheek, but that was about it, I replied. Did she participate in your care? He inquired. Did she feed you, help bathe you, perhaps help you in the bathroom? She tried at first, but she simply wasn't up to it. When did Mr. Wallace come into the picture? Almost from the beginning, I said. Were you friends before your accident? The prosecutor inquired. Yes, we were. They lived next door to us and we had spent time together before to my injury. I see. So you weren't surprised to see him in your apartment? No, I thought we were friendly. They frequently came over, and we would occasionally enjoy a beverage or dinner. You say he and your wife engaged in inappropriate activity in your apartment, the prosecution continued. When did that start? I'm not sure exactly. They could have been doing it while I was in the hospital, but I'm not sure. I have no confirmation of that. He frequently let her cry on his shoulder while they were both present. I believe it was approximately a month after I returned home from the hospital that I first heard them. Heard them? The prosecutor inquired. Yes. I could hear them kissing and moaning like they were making out. Laura wiped her eyes as I recounted what I had heard. Then I heard them in what used to be our bed, being intimate. What happened then? The prosecutor inquired. He would enter my room and harass me when she was showering. One day, he brought in a monitor in a box and said that it was so I could see a real man with my wife. Laura and the jurors let out a collective gasp. Your Honor, the prosecutor remarked as the bailiff brought out a trolley containing a large monitor and a black box into the courtroom. This is the monitor and box Mr. John is talking about. The box is a digital video recorder. The system also includes 2 video cameras, one in Mr. John's master bedroom and the other in his lodging room. We copied several hours of video footage captured by the device. The prosecutor turned back to face me. Is it your testimony that Mr. Wallace used this so you could watch him being intimate with your wife? He was asking. Yes, I said gently. Laura looked at Greg, astonished. "You liar!" she exclaimed. The judge hammered the gavel. "Order in the court," he declared. Laura calmed down, and the prosecutor resumed. "Did you know that Mr. Wallace placed a camera in your room as well as the master bedroom?" my friend asked me. I shake my head. This was new to me. "No sir, I didn't." "How did your wife react to this monitor?" the prosecution inquired. "She thought it was great that he got it for me. Apparently, she assumed it was so I could watch sports on TV." "And was it about this time that the abuse against you began?" the prosecutor inquired. "Yes, it was," I answered. "Please tell the court what would typically happen," the prosecution asked. "After Greg and my wife had their fun, he would come into my room, turn the monitor off, then lift me up and abuse me." "Is it in your testimony that he abused you?" the prosecutor inquired. "Yes," I said, embarrassed. "Was your wife ever present when this occurred?" the prosecutor inquired. "Not that I'm aware of. He always appeared to finish around the time she was done showering. Afterward, Mom would come into my room and tell me how great it was to have a friend like Greg to look after me." "How often did this happen?" "About 2 or 3 times a week," I answered. "For how long?" the prosecutor inquired. "About 4 months." I heard members of the jury gasp, and when I looked around, I noticed several of them staring at Laura and Greg with venom in their eyes. Laura looked down at the table, while Greg sat stoically, staring straight ahead. "So you estimate that this happened about 35 times overall?" the prosecutor inquired. "About that, yes," I replied. "Were you aware that Mr. Wallace recorded his time in your room?" my friend asked me. I shake my head. "No, I wasn't." The prosecutor looked at the jurors. "In fact, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wallace recorded himself abusing Mr. John 36 times on this device," he told them. He paused while the jurors took it in. "With friends like that, who needs enemies?" the prosecutor remarked rhetorically. The defense attorney objected, and the judge upheld his objection. "That's all I have for this witness at this time," the prosecution stated. "But I reserve the right to recall Mr. John to the stand." "Very well," the judge replied. "Your witness, Mr. Bradley," he informed the defense attorney. Brad Bradley remained at his table, looking up at me before speaking. "Mr. John, I am sorry to hear of your injuries, and I do hope you get better." "Thank you," I replied. "Just one thing," he added. "At any time, did you ever indicate to Mr. Wallace that you did not approve of his alleged actions?" "I was unable to. I was totally crippled at the time, and I couldn't even speak." "So the answer is no then?" he asked. "That's because I couldn't," I explained, growing agitated. "You also failed to alert anyone about what transpired, including your wife. Isn't that correct?" he questioned. Now I was upset. "That's because I was completely disabled and couldn't," I roared and slammed my fist on the thick wood rail in front of me. For a moment, no one said or did anything. When I drew my hand away, I noticed that I had cracked the rail. I didn't realize I'd hit it so hard. I looked at the judge before speaking. "I apologize, Your Honor. I lost my temper." "Don't do it again," he told me. I nodded my head. "That's all I have for this witness," Bradley added. The judge told me I may leave the stand, and Dr. Victor came to accompany me back to my seat. The prosecutor then summoned Dr. Victor to the stand. He informed the court of my injuries and the extent of my incapacity. He also said that he discovered severe damage, collected samples for evidence and testing, and then did everything he could to repair the harm. He also discussed the procedure he had conducted and my progress since then. "And in your professional opinion, the only way for this damage to have been done is for Mr. John to have been abused, is that right?" the prosecutor inquired. "Correct," Dr. Victor said. "That would also explain the presence of evidence." "Thank you," the prosecutor responded. He turned to face the jurors. "Ladies and gentlemen, the state tested the sample. Further tests and DNA analysis have proven with 99.99% certainty that it belongs to the defendant, Greg Wallace." He turned to face the judge. "That is all I have for this witness, Your Honor." "Your witness, Mr. Bradley," the court stated. "Thank you. Dr. Victor, you run the Arrowhead Institute of Advanced Medical Research, correct?" "Yes, that is correct," Dr. Victor replied. "You engage in some pretty cutting-edge research there, do you not?" Bradley asked. "Sure," Dr. Victor replied, slipping into his native German as he occasionally did. Bradley took out a piece of paper and started reading. "Each of us has different protection mechanisms that assist us deal with harsh events. Sometimes we revert to an alternate version of ourselves, which could be regarded as an alter ego. The alter ego could present itself in a variety of ways. An otherwise calm, unassuming person may suddenly become noisy, arrogant, and domineering, for example. Those who are unfamiliar with that person's behavior will have a very different opinion of him or her, he read before returning his gaze to Dr. Victor. You also talk of an inner beast that is dormant within every one of us. According to your writings, you claim to have discovered a means to unleash the so-called beast to assist with a certain scenario. Is that correct? He questioned. I did write that, and yes, my research has found that to be the case, replied the doctor. Isn't it true that you once worked with Mr. Bill Dalton to help him discover his purported inner beast? Bradley explained that simply saying yes or no would suffice. I worked with Mr. Dalton, yes, Dr. Victor said. The exact nature of my work, however, is a matter of doctor-patient confidentiality. Is it not true that toward the end of his treatment Mr. Dalton's house mysteriously blew up? Bradley asked. The prosecutor quickly protested. Irrelevant, Your Honor. Your Honor, Bradley explained, we all saw Mr. John's reaction. If you'll allow me, I believe there is a connection. I'll allow it for the time being, Mr. Bradley, the judge remarked. But I would appreciate it if you could make your point and move on. I will, Your Honor. Thank you, Bradley replied. He turned back to Dr. Victor. Are you aware of what happened to Mr. Dalton's home? Bradley asked. I remember seeing something about it on the news, Dr. Victor remarked. I also recall the police claiming that Mrs. Dalton and her live-in partner were manufacturing medicines with highly volatile materials. I don't see any relation to this situation. According to police reports, Mrs. Dalton was seen running out of the house screaming about a monster, Bradley recalled. Apparently a result of the drugs she and her lover were manufacturing, remarked Victor's doctor. Your Honor, this is absolutely irrelevant to the case before the court today, as Mr. Bradley is fully aware. I insist that this line of questioning be stopped, the prosecutor stated. I tend to agree. Mr. Bradley, I've been more than fair. Please move on. Very well, Your Honor. I have no further questions for this witness, Bradley stated. The judge dismissed Dr. Victor, and the case continued. The prosecutor summoned state agents, who searched my residence. Both claimed they discovered what looked to be proof of abuse. Then he called home healthcare nurses, who testified that they saw symptoms of physical abuse. They documented it in their records, but the home care facility never followed up, thus the reports fell through the bureaucratic cracks. I have one last piece of evidence, Your Honor, the prosecutor stated. With your permission, I would like to play a portion of video taken of the abuse against Mr. John. Very well, the judge replied. The prosecutor looked at the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to show you is shocking, he told them. I take no joy in this, but I believe it's necessary that you see for yourselves what Mr. John had to endure for months on end. He switched on the monitor and started playing the footage. The jury frowned as they saw Greg clearly abuse me. The prosecutor paused the video and enlarged the image. Ladies and gentlemen, let there be no doubt in your mind who is committing this heinous act to a man who once thought of him as a friend, he told the audience. After the jurors looked at the image for a few moments, tears streamed down my cheeks from shame. Again, the prosecutor paused the video. He stared at the stunned jurors. I rest my case, he stated with distaste. Mr. Bradley, you may present your case, the judge instructed once the prosecutor sat down. Bradley stood up and summoned Laura to the stand. Mrs. John, he asked, is it true that you had an affair with Mr. Wallace? Yes, it is, she replied calmly. Can you tell us why? He inquired. My husband, Ethan, was injured so badly, and I felt lost and hopeless, she told me. He was there when I needed someone to weep on. Yes, we had an affair, but it was nothing more. Were you aware of what Mr. Wallace did to your husband? Bradley asked. No, I wasn't. If you had known, would you have done anything to stop him? Bradley asked. Yes, I would have. Thank you, Mrs. John. That's it for now. Your witness, Mr. Foster, he remarked while sitting down. The prosecutor stood up and approached the monitor. He selected an image from the video that clearly showed both my face and Laura in the same frame. Mrs. John, he started, you testified that you were unaware your husband was being abused. Is this correct? Yes. Look at his face in that video, the prosecutor added. The hurt and humiliation were clear to everybody who saw it. Do you expect this court to think that you could look at your husband of 3 years in that state and not notice something was wrong? It didn't cross my mind at the time, she told me. Before Mrs. Wallace brought healthcare workers into the home, did you ever once feed or clean your husband? The defense attorney said. I tried, but I wasn't very good at it, she stated. What happens afterward? Did you even try to help? No. she replied gently. And why was that? The prosecutor inquired. I do not know. I felt Greg was helping him, and I had no idea what to do. The truth is, you basically abandoned him, didn't you? Bradley responded to the prosecutor's query with an objection. I withdraw the question, Foster promptly said. You said your affair with Mr. Wallace was purely physical, correct? That's right, she replied. And you claimed in your testimony that you still love your husband, right? Yes, she answered. Foster returned to his table, pulling out an audio recorder and a document from his briefcase. He walked back to the bench. Your Honor, this is a written report done by Samuel Jenkins, a private investigator hired by Mr. John's attorney, he stated, presenting the paper to the judge. A copy of this report and the audio were provided to Mr. Bradley, as evidenced by the accompanying affidavit. The report refers to an audio recording of a conversation between the defendants while out on a dinner date shortly after Mr. John was admitted to Arrowhead. With your permission, I'd like to play the audio for the jury. Very well, the judge replied. Foster activated the recording button, and Laura and Greg's chat could be heard in court. So have you given any thought to what we discussed? Greg's voice is heard on the recording. I have, and I admit I'm intrigued, Laura replied. Well, what do you think? I must admit, the last few months with you have been fantastic, she remarked in the recording. Much better than my life with Ethan has ever been. Are you sure we can pull this off? Of course, Greg replied. I'm a lawyer, you know. I can have a judge do whatever I want. It would be easy to declare Ethan a state ward. He can't care for himself, and you're clearly not trained to do so. Frankly, I can't stomach the idea of it, she told me. I mean, feeding him like a baby, wiping his drool, changing his diaper and cleaning his buttocks, yuck. It makes me nauseous just to think about it. I need a man, a whole man, a genuine man like you. You and I both know this Victor guy won't be able to do anything for him, Greg told him. Every doctor stated he'd be an invalid for the rest of his life. Once he is judged incompetent, we may seize his massive settlement and live like kings in Costa Rica or somewhere else. Wouldn't that be preferable to staying here and wiping the excrement off little Timmy? Yeah, it would, she answered. What about C though? Laura asked. Things haven't been great between us for a long time, Greg told me. She wants children, but I don't. And I'm tired of her continual pestering. I just want to be sure you won't go soft on me and tell me you still love him when we start dating. That will not happen. I love only you. The prosecutor paused the recording and looked at Laura. I felt like my heart had been ripped out again. So you and your lover intended to declare your spouse incompetent so that you could take his settlement money and go to Costa Rica? So were you telling the truth to your sweetheart or in court? Which is it, Mrs. John? Please tell me now so that I can decide whether or not to prosecute you with perjury. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she was forced to openly confront her own deception. I don't know, she exclaimed. I still loved him, but I loved Greg too. She looked over at me. Please, Ethan, forgive me. I shook my head, turning away from her. Foster glanced at her with disgust. I'm done with this witness, he stated before walking away. The court excused her, and Bradley summoned Greg to the stand. So Mr. Wallace, Bradley said when Greg was sworn in, we've seen video of you and Mr. John. There is no denying what we all witnessed. I only have one question. Did Mr. John ever tell you that he didn't approve of your actions? Not once, Greg answered with a snarl. Thank you, Bradley replied, turning away. Your witness, he informed Foster, who was already on his feet. Mr. Wallace, he said. You graduated from Harvard Law School, did you not? Yes, I did, Greg announced happily. And you graduated near the top of your class, didn't you? I did. In fact, you're highly regarded as a top litigator in your firm, Foster told me. Bradley objected. Relevance, Your Honor? Your Honor, I intend to show that Mr. Wallace not only knows the law, but he knew that Mr. John could not possibly have given consent, Foster told you. Go ahead, Mr. Foster, the judge instructed. Thank you. He turned back to Greg. You knew that Mr. John was disabled, didn't you? Greg sighed and said nothing. Didn't you? Foster bellowed. Yes, I knew, Greg said. And you knew that the law in this state says persons with Mr. John's disabilities are incapable of giving consent, didn't you? Foster inquired. Yes, I guess so, Greg said. Foster glanced at him with hatred for a few moments before shaking his head. I'm finished with this witness, Foster replied, walking away. Any more witnesses, Mr. Bradley? The court inquired. Bradley shakes his head. No, Your Honor, I rest my case. Very well, we'll take 15 minutes and reconvene to hear closing arguments. The judge pounded his gavel and everyone exited the courtroom. Dr. Victor gave me a cup of water. How are you holding up? He inquired as I sipped my water. I'll be okay, I assured him. He patted my shoulder. Good. Foster looked to check how I was doing. I'm sorry you had to relive all of that, he said. I believe we have made an impression on the jurors. We will see. This is nearly over, Ethan. Remain patient. Thanks, I replied. Soon, the break was finished, and everyone returned to the courtroom. Greg, Laura, and Mr. Bradley appeared less assured than they had earlier in the day. CA looked angry enough to spit nails. This was the first time she'd heard much about it. When the judge returned, the bailiff directed everyone to stand. All right, Mr. Bradley, present your closing statement, the court said. Bradley stood forward to face the jury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a difficult case for all of us. And contrary to popular belief, we hope Mr. John recovers. We have stipulated that the alleged abuse occurred with Mr. John. We're not debating that point, but this is a case about consent, or lack thereof. Mr. John confessed under oath that he never told my client that he did not provide approval. Mrs. John was unaware that anything was amiss, and she had no idea the alleged abuse had occurred. As a result, you are forced to conclude that my clients are not guilty. Thank you. He took a seat. The judge moved for Foster to make his final statements. On his way, Foster turned on the monitor, which displayed the image of Greg abusing me. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your participation today. I realize this has been really difficult for all of you. The defense has attempted to avoid the issue by stating that Mr. John never stated that he did not consent to what was being done to him. There's only one problem: Mr. John is crippled. He could not speak or defend himself. According to the law in this state, people with disabilities like his are unable to give or deny consent. Mr. Bradley is aware of this, as is the defendant, Greg Wallace, who is a Harvard Law School graduate. They have admitted to the activities against Mr. John. You've seen the video and heard the audio. You know the defendants plan to fraudulently declare Mr. John incapable in order to grab what was rightfully his and depart the country. Wallace took Mr. John's wife with the intention of taking Mr. John's money while leaving his own wife high and dry. You have heard the defendants' plan and scheme against Mr. John. The defense has not raised any doubts about what happened. The defendant Wallace abused Mr. John 36 times, and Mrs. John did nothing to stop it. In this state, abuse and willful neglect of a disabled person is considered a hate crime. That is why I am advocating for the highest punishment permitted by law. The state has done its part. Now I ask that you do yours and give Mr. John the justice he deserves. Thank you. After Foster had taken his seat, the judge issued his orders to the jury and sent them off to deliberate. He then ordered the rest of the court to recess. Dr. Victor and I entered the corridor, where Jacob waited. I just wanted to let you know that Laura signed the divorce papers, he told me. She isn't contesting anything. I just came back from filing them. The judge will sign off on them in a day or two, and you will be free in 6 months. Free? I asked cynically. Why don't I feel free then? You've been through a lot, young man, Dr. Victor explained. Trust me, it'll get better. I hope so. And I think I know just the person who can help you feel better, the doctor added with a knowing smile. You mean Megan? I inquired. Dr. Victor grinned and nodded. Ja, he answered. She really likes you, you know. It was my turn to smile. I like her too, a lot. Good, Dr. Victor replied. Just be careful though. I don't want you to have sex for at least another 6 to 8 weeks. I don't want you to put too much strain on your back just yet, he said with a smile. By the way, I said, what's up with that rail? How did I crack that thing? I barely slapped it. Must be the supplements we've been giving you, he said with a joke. That and Na's physical therapy. Nothing to do with that inner beast stuff, I said. He laughed. No, not at all. That's an entirely separate project. Besides, I would not recommend it for you, especially with the custom-built vertebrae we've installed. We talked for a little longer, and after about an hour, Foster poked his head into the corridor. Jury's back in already? I asked. He nodded his head. That was fast. Yeah, it was, Foster replied. Hopefully that's good news for us. We went through the motions again as everyone returned to the courtroom. The bailiff directed us all to stand as the judge entered, and we all took our seats. On his signal, the judge inquired, has the jury reached a decision? We have, the jury foreman said. The bailiff received the paperwork from the foreman and delivered it to the judge. After reading it to himself, He told Laura and Greg to stand up. Bradley stood with them. How do you find the charges against defendant Greg Wallace? The judge inquired. We find the defendant Greg Wallace guilty on all charges, the foreman stated. And on the charges against defendant Laura John, how do you find? We find the defendant Laura John not guilty on the charge of accessory to abuse of a disabled person, Your Honor, and guilty on all the other charges, said the deputy district attorney. The judge nodded his head. Very well, he responded, facing the defendants. He poured his rage on them. I've seen and heard a lot in this courtroom over the years, but nothing as awful and egregious as what I observed here today. The two of you make me sick to my stomach. You have not only mocked your marriages, but also the legal profession. That is why I am handing you the maximum penalty permitted by law. Mr. Wallace, as a well-trained lawyer and court official, your actions disgust me beyond words. At the prosecutor's request, I am sentencing you to at least 450 years of hard labor. That's 12 years for each of the 36 charges of maltreatment, plus an additional 20 years for committing a hate crime. I additionally added 8 years for conspiracy to conduct fraud. Mrs. John, I disagree with the jury's not guilty finding. Personally, I don't understand how anyone with more than 2 brain cells could be unaware that your husband was being abused. Nonetheless, I shall follow the verdict. I am, however, giving you the maximum punishment for criminal negligence and conspiracy to conduct fraud, which is 15 years in jail under state rules, making you available for parole in 10 years. He raised his gavel, but Bradley spoke to the judge. Your Honor, he replied, Mrs. John has just informed me that divorce papers have been filed, and she wishes to speak with Mr. John before being taken into custody. Is that acceptable with you, Mr. John? I can give her a couple of minutes, the judge explained. Your Honor, that's fine, I said. The judge nodded and remarked, very well. He slammed his gavel, declaring the court dismissed. Laura approached me as deputies prepared to take Greg away. You look good, she replied. Thank you, I replied. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for everything. I honestly had no idea what he was doing to you. I would have done everything I could to stop it if I had known. I think you convinced the jury of that, I told them. I agree with the judge, however. I find it difficult to believe. You are not a foolish woman. At any rate, you'll have 15 years to consider it. Was there anything else? Yes, she responded. I wanted you to know I signed the divorce papers and I'm not going to fight you over it. That's what I heard, I informed her. Don't you want to know why it happened? She inquired. I shook my head. I really don't care, I told her. I'm sure it was all for greed and lust. You cheated me, plain and simple. The why really doesn't matter anymore. Do you think you could ever forgive me? She asked. Why is it all you cheating losers think you can come crawling and begging for forgiveness? I asked. You certainly didn't care about me when I needed you the most. To answer your question, no. I do not intend to ever forgive you. Instead, I'll do my best to forget you exist. Was there anything else? I know you won't believe me, but I do love you, she replied. I just wanted to tell you that before they take me to jail. You're correct, I don't believe you, but thank you for saying so. I suppose you should get moving. Those deputies don't seem happy over there. Okay. Goodbye, Ethan, she replied. She walked away with tears in her eyes. At that moment I had absolutely no feelings for her. As I stood up, she approached me. How are you doing, Ethan? You look better now than you have in a long time. Thanks. I'm doing a lot better now, thanks to Dr. Victor. I just wanted to apologize for what my loser soon-to-be ex-husband did to you. I appreciate that, I told her. Did you get in touch with Jacob? Yes, I did. Greg's father insisted on a prenuptial agreement when we married, and it includes a very strict infidelity clause, so Jacob will have a field day with it. I'm glad to hear it, I said. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Thanks. I might need to borrow several copies of those videos from you. No problem, I responded. Whatever you need. I'll be gone a little longer, but I'm sure Jacob can make do with what he already has. One last thing, she added. I still have the key you gave me right after the accident. I'll clean up your apartment and remove Laura's belongings if you like. That would be a big help, see. Thanks. Not a problem. Good luck, and I'll see you soon, she said, kissing me on the cheek. We watched as she departed. I couldn't believe Greg was so dumb to cheat on such a nice woman. Are you finished flirting with all the women? Dr. Victor inquired. I'd like to get back to work if you don't mind. Works for me, I replied. But how are we going to get back? No problem, we'll take care of that for you, Agent Cole stated from behind. After all, We're the ones who brought you here at Dr. Victor's insistence. I sat down in the wheelchair, and Cole drove me out to the car, where we all climbed in. Actually, I was relieved to have the wheelchair. I'd been up and down much of the day and was feeling fatigued and achy. We returned to the facility, and Dr. Victor wheeled me into my room, where Megan waited for me. After supper, she helped me get ready for bed before going into the bathroom to change into her sleepwear, which was actually a long t-shirt. "How are you feeling?" she inquired as she slid into bed with me. "Wiped out." "It's been a long day," I explained. She kissed me and rested her head against my shoulder. "Yes, it has," she replied. "I realize it has been difficult, but it had to be done. Now you can start putting all of that behind you, and I'll be here to assist you in any way I can." Before I spoke, I took a long look at her face. I said, "I love you, Megan," without thinking. She smiled softly and kissed my lips. "And I love you, Ethan," she added. She rested her head on my shoulder and draped an arm across my chest. I felt happier than I had been in a long time. We soon fell asleep together. They exhausted me over the next 5 weeks. In drill instructor mode, encouraged me to go farther and quicker with each session. On top of that, I was seeing the counselor twice a week to help me overcome the trauma I had experienced the previous year. Every day, they took x-rays to determine the condition of my spine. Megan stayed every night in my bed and we grew to know each other rather well. Finally, Dr. Victor said that I had recovered sufficiently to be sent home. By then, my body was in better shape than it had ever been, but Doctor told me to avoid strenuous exertion for another 3 weeks. He also scheduled me to come in twice a month for the following year so they could check my back. I was eager to get home, but I also knew I'd miss Megan. On the day I was supposed to leave, I wrote her a note in which I expressed my feelings for her. I also offered her to come visit me whenever she wanted. I finished the note as Dr. Victor entered my room in a wheelchair. I stared at him, puzzled. After all, I could already walk on my own. He shrugged his shoulders. "Regulations," he stated. "I understand." As I sat in the wheelchair, I wished I'd never have to use one again. He pushed me to the pickup location outside and I glanced about while waiting for the Arrowhead van. Instead, I noticed a dark blue Toyota RAV4 pulling up. The driver's side door opened, revealing Megan, my red-headed angel of compassion. She came around to open the passenger door for me. Surprised, I stared at Dr. Victor. "Megan has a new assignment," he announced with a smile. "She'll be your live-in caretaker, that is, unless you have any objections." "Absolutely not," I answered, smiling. I shook his hand. "Thank you, Dr. Victor, for everything." "You're welcome," he replied with a smile. "I'll see you in a couple of weeks." He stared at Megan. "Please take care of our boy, okay?" "I will," she replied with a smile. After assisting me inside, she got into the automobile. I noticed numerous luggage had been stuffed into the back of the car. "So how long are you going to be assigned to me?" I asked. "It depends on how long you need me." "How long do you think that will be?" "Conservative estimate." "I would say at least 60 years, I responded. "Is that okay with you?" "Darn straight it is," I replied. She kissed me on the lips before pulling away and heading home. When we went home, I marked the calendar with the day Dr. Victor indicated I could resume normal activities. As it turned out, that was the day after my divorce from Laura was finalized. CEA met and married a doctor 2 years after her divorce. I never visited Laura in prison, but I did understand that she was undergoing treatment. After 15 years, she was freed on parole and worked as a server at a truck stop cafe on the highway. Megan and I married around 6 months after my divorce was finalized, which was a good thing because she told me a few weeks after we returned from our honeymoon that we were expecting children. We had 2 more children after that and felt that was sufficient for the time being. Our love for one another remained strong, and when our youngest child departed for college, we celebrated with an around-the-world trip. Even after all these years, she remains my gorgeous red-headed angel of mercy. My vertebrae strengthened, and it appeared that I was in better shape than I had ever been. The implants also worked, and all of the nerve damage I had sustained from the accident was reversed. Dr. Victor successfully repeated the operation multiple times over the next 10 years, and the treatment is now awaiting final approval. As I reflect on my life, I can't help but think of John Milton's quote, "Every cloud has a silver lining." Yes, I went through hell for a year after that truck hit me. It was my dark cloud. But what I have today is better than any silver lining. Am I the asshole for stepping in to defend a teenage cashier after a rude customer made her cry at the supermarket? So, this happened yesterday, and I'm still wondering if I overreacted. I, 35F, Was doing my usual weekly grocery shopping at a local supermarket. It was a busy afternoon, and the line at the checkout was pretty long. I was waiting patiently when I noticed the woman in front of me, probably mid-50s, becoming increasingly agitated as the teenage cashier, who couldn't have been older than 17, was scanning her items. The cashier seemed a bit flustered. I could tell she was probably new, making a few mistakes here and there, but nothing serious. The older woman, however, was not having it. She started muttering under her breath, rolling her eyes, and tapping her foot. Finally, when the cashier accidentally scanned an item twice and needed to call for a supervisor to void it, the woman lost it. She started berating the poor girl, saying things like, "How hard can it be to do this job? You can't even do basic tasks, you're wasting people's time." She just kept going on, and the more she yelled, the more flustered the cashier got until she started tearing up. I stood there for a second, hoping the lady would cool down, but she didn't. The poor cashier was clearly trying her best to keep it together. That's when I stepped in. I said to her, "You don't have the right to treat someone like that. She's doing her best, and it's just a mistake. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should try working like her for a day and see how easy it is." The woman looked stunned and told me to mind my own business. I replied, "It is my business when you're making a kid cry over something as stupid as groceries." The cashier's supervisor had arrived by then and stepped in to handle the situation, and the woman stormed off still muttering and cursing. After she left, the cashier thanked me with teary eyes, but a couple of people behind me in line gave me looks like I was the one who had done something wrong. Now I'm second-guessing myself. So Reddit, AITA for telling her off? My wife cheated with my cousin and had a baby. My family kept it secret for years, and now they want back into my life as I've found success. Please be patient with me as I explain this entire matter to my family because there is a lot of background involved. I'm a 44-year-old man who has been married for 10 years. My 41-year-old wife and I have been together for 13 years. We are content with our lives and have an 8-year-old kid as well. I have been married before though. I married at the age of 22, but regrettably, for reasons I'm still unclear, our marriage ended in divorce 3 years later. Since middle school, my ex-wife, who I'll call Amy, has been with me. We were essentially childhood lovers. We made the decision to be married as soon as we were out of college and had respectable careers. For the first few years, everything was good between us, but then, for some reason, things started to go strange. After that, I felt as though she was not interested at all, despite my best efforts to maintain the spark. A few weeks before our third wedding anniversary, she handed me divorce papers and declared she was done, despite my best efforts to win her back. My goal was to improve our marriage. She was only able to tell me that she was no longer in love with me, which was all I wanted as an explanation for why we had to break up after all this time together. I was furious, but there was nothing I could do about it. Since I had no other choice and didn't want to prolong the divorce and make her even more unhappy by making her live with me, I made the decision to proceed. Because of the limited number of shared assets we had, the process was really simple. I never saw her again after that. After the divorce was finalized, she changed towns and shut off all communication, according to a few people I spoke with. Even my relatives stopped talking to me around the time of the divorce, which was incredibly odd, but this is usual. When I was going through a really trying time, they ought to have been there for me, but instead they began to distance themselves from me. I made a concerted effort to stay in contact with them once the divorce was finalized, but I discovered that I had been blocked everywhere. I even made a few attempts to go see them, but neither my sister nor my parents ever let me in. It all struck me hard because it was so weird and I was already going through a difficult period. I couldn't even bring myself to do anything for a few years following the divorce, so I quit my work and spent a few months at home without a job. But I'm really fortunate to have friends by my side who encouraged me to attempt to move on and do better even during such trying moments. After the divorce, my friends looked after me because my family was never there for me. I ultimately made the decision to open my own eatery. Although it had always been my ambition, I had put it off in order to accumulate sufficient funds because I also needed to consider Amy during our marriage. But because we were divorced, I made the decision to go ahead and do it alone. I also chose to call the restaurant the name my parents had recommended. My buddies helped me approach a few potential investors, secure their support and begin developing a business plan. I opened my own restaurant a few years later. After the divorce, it took me about 4 years to get back on my feet. I met my current wife 2 years later. We started conversing after she told me she loved my restaurant at a function where we met through friends. I asked her to marry me after 3 years of dating because I wanted to give love another try. Here we are with our son 10 years later. My business life has also improved over the past few years, in addition to my personal life. In my career, I've done fairly well. It all began with a restaurant, but because of its success, we gradually started to grow. I am the CEO of my own hospitality firm at the moment, and we operate a chain of hotels and restaurants that are quite well liked. We intend to grow it even further in the hopes of gaining recognition outside of the state. I have put a lot of effort into getting to where I am now, but it has been a difficult journey. Since of this, I recently agreed to an interview since I felt it was an indication that I had truly made it. However, after seeing that interview on the television, my family decided to get in touch with me again, and I honestly had no clue that it would generate such a storm in my life. I didn't really think my family would have watched it because the channel that carried it was a somewhat popular one. Even if they had, I didn't think they would arrive at my workplace. My workplace's location isn't particularly discreet, so they must have had little trouble finding me. Still, it was highly improper of them to arrive at my place of employment and insist on seeing me while I was there. Regretfully, they did precisely that 3 days ago. Seeing them after all this time was really odd. The receptionist told me that my family was waiting outside when they arrived, even though I was working. I initially assumed she was referring to my wife and kid, which would have been strange given that my son was at school and my wife was at work. She went on to say that my sister and parents were present to see me. I was having trouble processing what was happening at the time. I informed the receptionist that they would have to be ordered to go for the time being, but I would see them later. Naturally, they persisted and were making a scene, so I had to step in. Before I could talk to them and find out what was going on, I didn't want security to eject them from the premises. I therefore walked to the lobby to see them. They immediately pretended that nothing had changed in the over 2 decades since I had last seen them. They started praising me right away, telling me how wonderful it was that I had achieved enough accomplishment to make the headlines and how motivational my tale was. They should have been included in that story as members of my family, so hearing them say it felt odd. They began discussing how they had seen my family, but I tried to dismiss it by telling them I had to return to work. I had mentioned in my interview how helpful my wife and son had been to me along the way. They were referring to certain family images that were also featured on the channel. Since they had been away from us for a while, they began to express a wish to meet my wife and their grandson as soon as possible. At that point, they said I should have done more to reach out to them after the divorce and chastised me for not trying hard enough. It dawned on me that I might at last be able to find out what had transpired at that time. Therefore, rather than telling them to leave, I chose to let them speak. In an attempt to find some closure, I even sat down with them in the lobby. During their conversation, I learned the true reason my family had deserted me and why Amy had chosen to divorce me. Yes, Amy had been cheating on me, as you may have surmised by now. My parents had been helping her hide it the entire time, so I had never suspected it. However, they stated that they had their reasons, or at least, those they believed to be legitimate, so don't pass judgment too hastily. Amy had apparently been having an affair with my cousin, who was the son of my dad's older brother. Everything made sense when they eventually told me. I now saw why they had supported her, why I hadn't received an invitation to any family gatherings for the previous 20 years, and why I had been rejected without any fault of my own. I had never liked my cousin, let's call him Carl, since he was a rude, entitled brat. Unfortunately, his father and the rest of the family felt he should be given a free pass for everything because his mother had died when he was only 6 months old. No one ever told him how to act throughout his life, and he consistently got away with anything. The fact that my uncle, Carl's father, was my dad's supervisor and had founded the family business before my dad joined it didn't help either. When Carl decided he wanted to be with Amy after we were married and she agreed, my family felt compelled to support them. They couldn't take the chance of upsetting my uncle. But apparently it was easy for them to decide to risk their friendship with me. They did precisely that. They also informed me that my uncle made it very apparent during the divorce that he did not want any family members, including my parents and sister, to communicate with me in any way. After Amy said she was expecting my child, they apparently attempted to object. They would have to cut me off if they ever wished to communicate with their grandson. In addition, when Amy filed for divorce, I was never informed that she was expecting a child. I couldn't have predicted because she hadn't been displaying at the time either. She had moved out long before the divorce was finalized, so she hadn't been living with me. Therefore, even before my son was born, I was unaware that I had become a father. It seems that my daughter, who is now almost 20, believes Carl is her biological father even though she has never met me. In any case, my parents told me this about what actually occurred all those years ago. It felt like I was being told a story, and I was hardly able to process any of it at the time. To acknowledge that this was my reality, I had to pinch myself. My family thought that by achieving job security and establishing a bond with their granddaughter, They had effectively cut me off. They had cut me off because, in my opinion, they were simply cowards. They could have simply told me the truth and let me deal with it, but instead they decided to be scared of my dad's brother, acting as though he could do more than just drive my father out of the family business. My dad could have taken legal action in retaliation even at that point. I honestly can't think of a reason why you didn't notify me about Amy's pregnancy or the fact that I have a daughter. They sat on this for 20 years without saying anything until they realized I was doing well in life. They suddenly felt a great deal of pity for everything and wanted to make amends with me. Sadly for them, I was able to see through their deception. I told them I needed them to go as soon as they were done telling me everything because I didn't have the capacity to forgive them right now after what they had just told me. Since we were seated in my workplace's lobby and I didn't want to start a fight, I made an effort to be polite. I couldn't, however, rely on others to act similarly. As soon as I told them to go, they began complaining that I should consider their point of view and how challenging the situation had been for them as well. I informed them that I was positive they were only contacting me now because they wanted a share of my success. They strongly rejected it. My sister even went so far as to argue that they were the reason I was successful in the first place, as they had come up with the name for my restaurant back when it was still just a dream. Given that they hadn't helped me over the years and that I had created everything on my own with the assistance of my friends rather than them, I thought it was rather brave of her to make such a claim. It wasn't enough for them to claim credit for my accomplishment just because they suggested a name. I laughed at her because the idea was so ridiculous. I threatened to have her and my parents ejected from the building if they didn't leave right away. They persisted in their argument, stating that they would not go until we had resolved our differences. But I was not interested in carrying on the discussion. I therefore carried out my promise and had security eject them from the building. As they were being led away, they were obviously very unhappy and tried attempting to convince me that they had no other option. However, I don't believe that. They had an option, but they chose poorly, and now they will have to live with the repercussions. They have survived the previous 20 years without seeing me or my family, so I have no doubt that they will be able to do the same in the future. In any case, they haven't stopped attempting to get in touch with me 3 days after this happened. They haven't had the guts to return inside my workplace, but they have been showing up outside, sending emails to my work address, and texting me on social media. Their attitude has clearly changed as seen by the numerous apologies in their mails. They appear somewhat agitated as they wait for me to stop for them outside my place of employment. However, I ignore them and simply drive past. I almost feel sorry for them now because of how horrible things have gone. To be honest, I've discussed this with my wife because, no matter what I do about my family, we still need to consider my daughter, whom I was unaware of until a few days ago. We have been debating whether or not to track down my daughter and attempt to get in touch with her. We also have to deal with my family, who I don't think will leave until they have another opportunity to talk to me. My wife believes that perhaps I should invite them over and have a conversation with them in order to at least try to resolve the issue. Since this circumstance isn't healthy for my emotional health, she thinks it might help get rid of all the toxicity. But I'm not personally interested in doing it. Given everything I've learned and what I'm going through right now, I don't have the mental capacity to deal with them, so I just want to keep ignoring them till they go away. We are struggling greatly to decide how to proceed and handle this. After 20 years of no communication, I also question whether I'm wrong for not wanting to give my parents another chance to talk. Update 1. A week and 3 days have passed since my initial post, and my spouse and I have made the decision to keep ignoring my relatives. Fortunately, they haven't been showing up to my place of employment for the previous several days. This is most likely due to their fatigue or fear of security. In any case, I'm glad. It was much simpler for me to quit thinking about them after they stopped visiting. It appears that I was feeling guilty about how I was handling the matter because of their presence. I no longer feel bad about not responding to their texts. No matter how many times they apologize, nothing will change. No amount of apologies will make up for the fact that they have failed me as a family. I'm not even bothering to block them anymore, even though they've kept sending messages from different accounts and email addresses. What's the point? I'll continue to ignore them even if they try to apologize by making new accounts. We'll see how long they can continue this. Let's go on to the other problem we are facing, my daughter. Neither my wife nor I knew how to handle the matter. My parents told me where she attends college throughout our talk, so we have her name. I haven't taken any action yet, but my assistant was able to locate her social media profiles. I am unsure of if it is appropriate for me to contact her, and I'm unsure of how to inform her that I am her biological father. I can't just walk up to Amy's house and demand custody or anything because she's not a kid. Furthermore, given what I've learned about Amy, I'd prefer not to have her involved in this at all. I no longer have any regard for that woman or my family as a whole because they are all cowards with no courage, and I don't want anything to do with them. I can't say the same for my kid though. She is still my biological daughter, regardless of who reared her. Please let me know if you have any suggestions about how to approach her or if I should even be doing this. I also want to thank everyone who left a remark on my first post. I hope you can help me again because your advice has been incredibly useful. Update 2. My wife and I made the decision to move ahead after reading the comments on my last update. Waiting for the ideal moment or chance to get in touch with my daughter was pointless. We had to remove the band-aid and finish the job. We thought it wouldn't be appropriate to fly out to her because she lives in a different state, so we chose to message her first and see how things work out. We messaged her on Instagram and gave her the most polite explanation possible. We are merely awaiting a response at this time. She will undoubtedly find it difficult to accept, just as it is for me. The fact that my wife has been so understanding of my efforts to reconnect with my long-lost kid from my previous marriage is beyond me. We're trying our best, but I'm sure it's bringing up a lot of complex feelings for all of us. I would love to establish a relationship with my daughter, therefore I sincerely hope she responds. My parents haven't visited my place of employment in a long time. They wrote me a lengthy email yesterday in which they expressed their sincere regret for everything and their want to mend our friendship. They only required one opportunity. Additionally, they indicated they would wait for me to get in touch with them before contacting me again. To be honest, I'm a little relieved that they finally understood that I don't want to talk to them at this time. The last thing I need is for them to add additional drama to my already full plate. All I can hope for now is that they follow through on their promise and don't get in touch with me again. I will talk to them myself if I feel ready or want to at any time. But at this point, it doesn't appear probable that this will occur anytime soon. The situation has only gotten worse now that I know the true reason they haven't spoken to me in 20 years. I don't think the feeling of betrayal and hurt will go away anytime soon. There was at least one positive outcome from this. I learned more about my daughter, and I'm hoping she will choose to give our relationship another shot. In case she doesn't want to speak with us, I haven't yet told my kid about her. I don't want to give him unrealistic expectations. But if everything works out, he might see her as a sister, and I might meet the daughter I never knew I had. Right now, I'm feeling a lot of different emotions, and I'm making a lot of effort to control them. Update 3. I made contact with my daughter on social media approximately 2 weeks ago. I messaged her, telling her everything about myself and our relationship. I finally got a response today after waiting for 2 weeks. She only mentioned that she had discussed me with her mother and that she had discovered that I am her biological father. She was shocked by this, of course. She had no notion that she wasn't Carl's daughter and had thought he was her biological father for the last 20 years. She also told me that she wanted to see me and my family after learning the real tale of how her mother and I got to be this way. Since she doesn't have the money to visit us at this time and isn't talking to her family, we are taking a plane to see her this weekend. She didn't go into too much detail, but Amy first attempted to deny the message when she challenged her about it. But in the end, she had to be honest with her. Since I don't want to talk to Amy, I sincerely hope she doesn't get in touch with me. I haven't heard from her yet. When my family learned that I had contacted my daughter, they promptly betrayed their word and began attempting to speak with me. My uncle was obviously upset that I found out, and rightfully so, as they had worked for 20 years to make sure I never found out so that their lives wouldn't be disturbed. I've learned that my uncle is blaming my parents. My dad still fears his older brother, despite the fact that he no longer works for him and owns his own company. He has been pleading with me to explain that neither Carl nor my uncle were involved in my discovery, but I fail to understand the purpose. They are the only ones who could have maintained such a secret, so even if I did, I doubt anyone would believe me. The majority of my family has never been close to me, and they haven't bothered to talk to me in 20 years. It's amusing how frantic they are right now to keep their friendship with my uncle intact. But to be honest, I don't give a damn. I lost out on 20 years of a relationship with my daughter because of them. This, I believe, is the least I can do. Update 4. I finally got to meet my kid today with my family. It was initially uncomfortable, then moved, but overall it was simply lovely. Despite having grown up with two of the worst people I've ever met, she seems to be a decent and caring person. She is a very mature and clever young woman, whether it is due to her natural disposition or to the fact that they raised her well. During our lengthy talk, we discussed Amy and Carl's situation. She told me that she didn't care that they didn't approve of her meeting us. She doesn't care what her folks think now that she knows the truth. She doesn't intend to eliminate Amy and Carl from her life entirely because they don't have any other children but her, but she will undoubtedly put them out of her life for a while as she tries to come to terms with everything. She informed me that she also needed time to begin developing a relationship with me. I completely understand that she's in a really strange mental state at the moment. She seemed to get along well with my wife and her half-brother, and we had a great day overall. During supper, we discovered that my parents, who are her grandparents, had maintained communication with her throughout the entire time. Given that they were her grandfather's brother's family rather than her biological grandparents, she always thought it was odd how sentimental they were about her. Now they understand why they were so devoted to her. But now that she has learned all of this, she and I both view them differently. Since I'm a lot older than her, I can probably relate to her feelings, but not totally. Having been deceived by those she thought were closest to her throughout her life, she is just 20 years old and is likely finding it much more difficult to cope. In any case, we will both need to work on this, and maybe things will improve in the future. We're going to make an effort to make it the greatest it can be, so I know it must be. The fact that the meeting went well and that my family and I both seem satisfied after everything makes me very happy. No matter what Carl, Amy, or my family have done, I'm also rather happy with the situation. The important thing is that we finally have an opportunity to put things right after all these years, and I'm going to take advantage of it. My half-sister lied, saying I was a call girl and drug dealer, and I got kicked out. Years later, my dad's message on my wedding reopened old wounds. I'm Emma, and I would have laughed a year ago if you had told me that my own family would abandon me. However, that is precisely what took place, and it all began with Leah, my half-sister. Leah has always been dramatic, but I never thought one of her falsehoods would ruin my life. She had to be the center of attention all the time. Even though we were never very close, I made an effort to be a good big sister when I was growing up. Leah was born a few years after our dad remarried when I was 10 years old. She could do no wrong. She was the golden child. She was loved by my father and my stepmother, Margaret, and she understood how to take advantage of it. Leah was skilled at manipulating others, but I was unaware of how far she would go. At first it was subtle. Little remarks about me, such as Emma's acting weird lately, or Emma's been staying out late, would be made by Leah to Dad and Margaret. I'm concerned for her. They didn't give it much thought at first. At the age of 24, I was living alone and attempting to make sense of my post-college life. However, Leah continued to sow doubt, and I was unaware of it until it was too late. My father called me one day. I sensed something was wrong because of the tension in his voice. He said, "We need to talk, Emma. Will you please come over?" Unaware that my entire world was going to fall apart, I went to their house. Margaret appeared to have made up her mind about me when I entered the living room since she was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed. Leah was also present, but she appeared far too innocent to be the person who had just turned my family against me. Dad wasted little time. "I need you to be honest with us about what Leah told us. Do you use drugs?" It was so ridiculous that I laughed. "What? No, of course not. What is the source of this?" Margaret squinted her eyes. "Leah reported that during your stay last weekend, she discovered some pills in your room." I went cold. I believed that Leah had not been in my room. Nothing suspicious was ever left there by me. That is untrue. I have no idea what she is discussing. Leah, however, spoke out, her big eyes and phony worry evident. "Emma, I have been quite concerned about you, but I didn't want to say anything. I felt you might need help because of the unusual way you've been acting." I gaped in shock as I looked at her. "You're telling lies. Never in my life have I used drugs." However, what I stated was irrelevant. The untruth had already been ingrained in their heads by Leah. Margaret and Dad looked at each other, and I knew they trusted her more than I did. The fact that I had never before given them any cause to suspect me was irrelevant. Margaret continued. "That's not all. Leah said that you've had relationships with dubious individuals. Are you selling yourself, Emma?" It seemed as if someone had hit me. Because of what Leah said, my own stepmother, who had reared me for years, was accusing me of being a prostitute. It was unbelievable to me. "No, it's unbelievable that you would even ask me that. Leah is telling lies." Again though, it didn't feel like my words mattered. They were entangled in the web that Leah had spun. Dad continued. "Emma," in a softer tone now, as if he wanted to believe me but was unable to. "All we want to do is assist you. We must know if you are in difficulties." "I'm not having any problems." With tears in my eyes, I screamed, "Leah is deceiving you." Leah gave me a wide-eyed stare while continuing to play the innocent victim. "I'm only attempting to assist you, Emma. I don't want you to become involved in negative situations like some of my pals did." I was unable to bear to look at her. "You're intentionally doing this," I spit out. "You wish for them to despise me." Margaret got to her feet. That's sufficient, Emma. We can't trust you unless you can be truthful with us. We must step back, even if we love you. Step back. They were expressing that they no longer wanted me around. That day, I felt numb when I left the house. Leah's falsehoods had caused my own family, who were meant to support me, to turn against me. I was at a loss for what to do. My mother lived across the nation, and although she believed me, there wasn't much she could do from such a distance. Worst of all, Leah continued to embellish her lies. She began spreading tales about me being a drug addict across the town. After hearing the rumors, my supervisor fired me because he didn't want an untrustworthy employee. My friends stopped phoning, and I felt even more alone. I lost everything because of Leah's lies, my reputation, my career, and my family. She was enjoying the attention as I was in a downward spiral. Whenever I attempted to approach her, she reframed the situation so that I appeared to be the unstable one. When Dad contacted me again to inform me that they no longer wanted me around, it was the last straw. It's best if you stay away, Emma, until you can get help. You must not be around Leah. She has endured enough. Had enough? In their perspective, Leah was the victim, even though I had lost everything. I was finished. In an attempt to start again, I packed up my belongings and relocated to a different city. However, the harm was already done. I wasn't sure whether my relationship with my family could ever be restored once it was destroyed. Months passed, and each time I considered contacting them, I recalled their initial reaction. As if I were a complete stranger rather than their daughter. For that, I couldn't forgive them, and I couldn't forgive Leah either. However, as time went on, I started to question whether Leah's actions were more complex. What type of individual would ruin someone's life by lying like that? Was she experiencing something more serious than jealousy? I had to move on with my life, with or without them, so it didn't really matter anymore. The agony of losing my family still aches a year after everything fell apart, even though I've been able to restore some of what I lost. I'm not sure if they'll ever expose Leah's deceit or if I'll ever be able to trust them again. One thing is certain though, they will have to confront the reality of Leah's true nature if they ever hope to have me back in their life. Holding my breath is not an option. It only grew worse after the altercation with my family. I made an effort to move on, but it wasn't that easy. The wound from the betrayal festered and got deeper every day. My life was tainted by Leah's falsehoods, and I was unable to avoid the repercussions. Not only did I lose my friends and work, but I also lost my identity. The final betrayal occurred when my father kicked me out of the house, challenging everything I believed to be true about myself. I can still clearly remember the day it happened. Desperate to convince my father of the truth, I had returned to his home. Perhaps if I calmly and directly explained everything to him, he would comprehend. I wanted to think that the father who reared me was still inside of him, the father who taught me how to ride a bike, who used to support me at soccer matches, and who always emphasized the importance of family comes first. I wanted my father to be like that again. However, I could feel the tension in the air as soon as I went through the door. Margaret was sitting with her arms folded in the kitchen, looking at me as if I were a nasty object that needed to be removed. Naturally, Leah was not present, but I knew she was there, most likely listening in the background while she waited for everything to fall apart the way she always desired. With a harsh expression on his face, my father stood at the kitchen counter as though he had already decided before I had a chance to say anything. I said, attempting to speak steadily, "Dad, we need to talk. You must hear my side of the story." The hush that followed his delayed response was oppressive. My heart was thumping louder in my throat with every second that went by. He sighed at last. "Emma, I'm not sure if I have anything more to say. You've been granted time. We have attempted to assist. You haven't assisted me at all." With a trembling voice, I shot back. "All you've heard is Leah. I can verify that everything she has told you is false. Just listen to me, please." I could feel Margaret's judgment stabbing me as she shook her head. "We've heard enough, Emma. Leah has just been worried for you and you haven't done anything to disprove her." I became so frustrated that I was unable to contain it any longer. "Leah is lying out of jealousy. This is how she receives the attention she has always desired. Do you not see? She's playing tricks on you." However, my words were ignored. My father's face remained unchanged. He wasn't even taking into account my version of events. "This isn't good for you or Leah," he stated in a quiet but forceful voice. "Emma, I believe it would be best if you stopped visiting, at least until you received assistance." "Ask for assistance." Incredulous, I repeated. "You believe that I am the one in need of assistance? Nothing has gone wrong on my end. You're tossing me out because of Leah's falsehoods, even though I'm not selling myself or using drugs." My dad's eyes become stony. This hostility in the house is unacceptable. I apologize, but you must go. Margaret's lips formed a narrow line as she nodded in agreement. It's best that way. Stunned, I stood there. It was this. I was their own kid, and they were choose Leah's lies above me. I had the impression that everything I had ever done for them, every loving moment, every memory we had together, was being instantly obliterated. I gave my father one last glance in the hopes that he might change his mind or show some glimmer of hesitation. However, nothing was present. I couldn't find him. Without saying another word, I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me with tears in my eyes. A final brutal punctuation to the life I had known, the sound reverberated in my mind. The initial months following expulsion were a haze of hopelessness. While I was trying to put my life back together, I moved in with a friend named Jessica, who graciously allowed me to rest on her couch. But despite my best efforts to divert my attention, I was unable to get rid of the sense of abandonment. My chest ached every time I saw a family in the park or heard someone talk about their parents. Leah's actions of turning everyone I cared about against me were on my mind constantly. Jessica made an effort to be encouraging, but it was clear that she didn't completely get what I was going through. One evening, as we sat on her small balcony, she said, "Perhaps you should just get in touch with them again. By now they might have calmed down. You could." "No," I cut in, my tone acrid. "I'm not wanted by them. They were quite explicit about that." She gave me a pitying glance, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. I knew she wanted to help, but you can't truly comprehend what it's like to have your family turn against you, to be deceived by those who are meant to love you without conditions, unless you've been there yourself. It wasn't easy, but I tried to reconstruct my life over the next 5 years. Even in the new city, the rumors that Leah disseminated had followed me. There were whispers about me. I applied for employment, but every time I was turned down, it felt like another nail in the coffin of who I was before. People's perceptions of me changed. They thought I was broken and unreliable. Then, almost 2 years after my expulsion, an unforeseen circumstance occurred. I was working at a little cafe on a Saturday afternoon. Even though it wasn't my ideal career, working as a barista was a reliable job that helped me pay my bills. A man entered when I was cleaning the counter. Although he had a somewhat familiar appearance, I was unable to identify him. He paused before asking, "Emma?" Curious, I turned to him. "Yeah?" He gave a clumsy smile. "I doubt that you recall me. I'm Leah's Dylan." When Leah's name was spoken, my stomach fell. Dylan. God, I now recalled him. When we were younger, he had dated Leah for a couple of years. Around the time Leah began spreading those stories about me, they broke up. Why on earth was he in this place? All I wanted to do was turn and leave, but I mustered a kind grin. "Oh, Dylan, I see. What's going on?" He raked a hand through his hair and shifted uneasily. "I realize this may seem strange, but I've been intending to speak with you for some time. After everything that has transpired, I simply need to clear my conscience, even if I wasn't sure if I should." I arched an eyebrow. "Clear your conscience?" He seemed truly sorry as he sighed. "It has to do with Leah and what she said about you. The prostitution and the drugs were all lies." My throat tightened each breath. It felt more genuine after hearing it from someone else who knew Leah well. I answered, "I know that," in a tone that was colder than I had intended. "But my family doesn't." Dylan looked at the floor and nodded. "I apologize, I understand. I should have spoken out sooner, but I was unaware of the extent to which she would take it. She had her problems, Leah. Emma, she was always envious of you. I believe that's the reason she did it." I gazed at him, attempting to comprehend his words. "Jealous of what?" "You," stated Dylan plainly. "You had your own life, were older, and were more self-reliant. Even if you were unaware of it, Leah always felt as though she was living in your shadow. She wanted attention, and when she saw that making you appear terrible would get it, she went for it. She told me about it after our breakup, although I was unaware of its full scope at the time. Despite her shame, she was unsure of how to stop. My mind was racing. Had Leah acknowledged it? Had she really admitted to fabricating it all? And Dylan had been aware all along. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Anger rising within me, I demanded. "This could have been avoided by you. Years ago my family could have learned the truth." Dylan repeated, "I'm sorry," in a low voice. I had no idea how. Leah has a way of making people question themselves, and I didn't think they would trust me. She also played with my head. Barely believing what I was hearing, I shook my head. Was jealousy the ultimate cause of all the suffering and heartache Leah had caused? That's why I was expelled by my father. That's why I lost everything in my life, My career, my family? Dylan waited for me to say something. But I was at a loss for words. I was no longer even able to look at him. I was only angry. I murmured, "You should go," and turned my back on him. He repeated, "Emma, I'm really sorry," one final time before slipping out of the cafe. I tried to stabilize myself as the weight of everything fell on me while I stood there clutching the counter. My life had been ruined by Leah's falsehoods, and it was all because she was envious. Finally, years later, I knew the truth. Now though, what good was it? I kept thinking about approaching Leah after that day. My anger was unlike anything I had ever felt before. It engulfed me, recreating every moment of betrayal and keeping me up at night. I was looking for answers. I wanted her to confess what she had done to everyone, including our father and me. Dylan had told me about Leah's deception years ago. I initially believed that learning the truth would bring some sort of closure, but it just served to reignite old hurts. I didn't need their apologies, especially not just now, because I had constructed my life without my family's love and support. For the first time in a long time, I was in a good place. More importantly, I had found someone who embraced me for who I was, without the baggage of my history, and I had a new career that I loved. Marketing for a nonprofit. 2 years ago, Noah and I met through common acquaintances, and things felt natural as soon as we spoke. He saw me, Emma, as the person I had become in spite of everything, without interfering in my family life or criticizing me for the strained ties. I thought my life was finally coming together again when Noah proposed. We were preparing a modest, low-key wedding. I didn't require a lavish party. It was important that we begin our new life together and create a family free from deceit and treachery. Life wasn't that easy, of course. It had been years since I had spoken to Margaret or my father. I severed all connections after they expelled me. I blocked them on social media, switched cities, and updated my phone number. Occasionally, I would learn through rumors that they wanted to know how I was doing, but I never answered. I remained silent even after Dylan came clean. How would I respond? That they blindly trusted Leah and believed a lie about me, their own daughter, and that I had to suffer as a result. For that I couldn't forgive them. Then, around 6 months into the planning of our wedding, I received an unexpected email. My father gave it to me. I opened the screen after staring at it for a very long time. As I read his words, my pulse raced in my chest. "Since you departed, Emma, you have been on my mind every single day. I can't express how sorry I am for all that has transpired, and I know we made a grave error by choosing to believe Leah over you. Margaret and I want to put things right because we miss you more than words can express. I've heard that you're getting married via a pal. As I've always dreamed, I would adore being there to accompany you down the aisle. Give me an opportunity to express my regret, Emma." With trembling hands I set down my phone. Did he wish to apologize? After all these years. He wanted to make amends after what they had done to me. I couldn't stop thinking about it for days. Noah asked me what was going on after noticing that I was preoccupied, but I was at a loss for words. I hadn't told him anything that had transpired with my family. Although he was aware of their absence from my life, he was unaware of the depth of the betrayal. It felt almost like another lifetime since I had buried it so deeply. I finally sat Noah down one evening and told him everything, including about Leah, my father, and Margaret, and how they had abandoned me when I most needed them. I informed him about Dylan's confession and how I still couldn't forgive them despite knowing the truth. With a contemplative expression on his face, Noah listened patiently without pressuring me to make a choice. "There is nothing you owe them," he added quietly. "You are free to choose not to have them at the wedding. Emma, this is your day. Our future is at stake, not the past." I was reassured by his remarks, but they didn't help me decide. Even though I knew my family would never be the same, I still felt a part of me missed them. I wanted my father to be present on one of the most significant days of my life, to escort me down the aisle. However, could I truly pardon them for their actions? I finally responded to my father's email 1 week later. I told him that although I was grateful for the apology, I wasn't prepared to move on. The devastation was too great. However, I was willing to allow him to attend the wedding if he realized that our relationship would never be the same. Margaret and Leah weren't invited. There was no negotiating that. My phone rang 2 days after I sent that email. Even though I didn't recognize the number, I felt compelled to take it up. My father's voice was tremulous and emotional as he said, "Emma." At first I remained silent. I waited for him to say something, just listening. At last, he said, "I received your email. I'm thrilled that you'll allow me to attend the wedding, but I must beg. Will you not extend an invitation to Leah?" My stomach turned over. I could see where this was headed. No, father, Leah is not invited? You understand why. The person on the other end of the line paused for a while. His breathing was audible as he deliberated over his next sentence. She's your sister, Emma. She is still family. Even though I know what she did was horrible. Since then, she has matured significantly. She wants to make amends and is remorseful for what she done. I could sense my old wrath building. Leah ruined my life, Dad. You and Margaret blindly believed her lies, and I lost everything as a result. She cannot simply attend my wedding and act as like nothing is wrong. I get that, he responded in a beseeching tone. However, this is an opportunity for us to reunite and begin our family's healing process. If Leah isn't at your wedding, I can't attend. It wouldn't be appropriate. I went cold. A command. On my wedding day, he was threatening to not attend unless I included the guy who destroyed my life. Are you serious at this moment? My voice was thick with incredulity as I asked. Emma, I'm not kidding. I can't abandon Leah, even though I want to be there for you because I love you. She is also my daughter. I had the feeling that I would get sick. Are you really going to pick her over me once more? My voice quivered with anger as I asked. You're still supporting her in spite of everything that's happened? It's not about sides, he shouted frantically. It has to do with family. We must unite. No, I responded in a hard, icy tone. We wanted you to be there for me when I needed you. You didn't. And now you're attempting to spoil my happiness once more. Please don't do this, Emma, he pleaded. This can be fixed. No, we can't, Dad. My hand trembled as I hung up. My eyes were watering, but I fought the need to cry. I refused to let him, Leah, or anybody else ruin this day. To get here, I had had to fight too hard. It was bittersweet in the months before the wedding. On the one hand, I was getting married to my soulmate. My father, on the other hand, would not be present. Even though I stuck by my decision, it still stung. I secretly hoped that he would pick me, that he would see how much suffering he had caused by supporting Leah all those years ago. However, he didn't. He was unable to. I made an effort to concentrate on the positive aspects, such as selecting the ideal outfit, deciding on the food, and selecting flowers with my maid of honor, Rachel. Throughout it all, Noah was encouraging and never pushed me to bring Leah or my father. He saw that this wedding was not about the shattered remnants of my past, but rather about us and our future. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but feel the weight of my family's absence as the day drew near. My mom lived across the country, and we were no longer close, so I knew she couldn't make it. Although I didn't hold it against her, her attempt to maintain her objectivity during the whole situation with Leah caused a gulf between us that we were never able to fully close. Rachel threw me a tiny bachelorette party the night before the wedding. Just some nice laughter, lots of wine, and a few close friends. I was able to put everything else aside and simply have fun for a few hours. However, once the party ended and my friends departed, I was left sitting by myself in my apartment, gazing at my own wedding invitation. Even though I knew my father wouldn't show up, I had mailed him one. A part of me wanted to tear it up, to completely remove him from my life. However, another part of me, possibly the one that still missed the family I lost, was unable to do it. When the wedding day finally came, it was just as I had imagined. As Noah and I stood at the altar with our selected family and friends, the sun shone and the air was warm, and I felt at ease. My decision had been the right one. My dad wasn't present. Leah wasn't either. And I wasn't burdened by their absence for the first time. They weren't necessary for me to prove that I was happy and that I had moved on. It was sufficient that I had discovered my own happiness and my own family. I experienced a sense of closure as Noah and I exchanged vows, not the type that comes from reconciliation or forgiveness, but rather from making your own decisions and accepting that some scars cannot be healed. I felt liberated as we danced beneath the stars following the wedding. I had allowed the hurt of my family's betrayal to define me for a very long time, but now that I was standing next to Noah, I realized that my past did not dictate my future. Nothing, not Leah, not my father, not anyone, could take away the love and trust I had forged in my new existence. I felt whole for the first time in years. The day of the wedding had been ideal. I felt at peace for the first time in years as Noah and I stood at the altar. It was the start of a new chapter in my life, one free from the heartache, deceit, and betrayals of the past. For the first time, I gave myself permission to think that I could create a life without my family's shadow. However, reality struck in as Noah and I returned from our brief honeymoon in the days after the wedding. I felt burdened by my choice to sever my relationship with Margaret, Leah, and my father. They hadn't offered an apology or a last-minute request for pardon. By refusing to invite Leah and refusing to back down when my father gave me his ultimatum, I had made it plain that I was done. However, after you make those choices, the world doesn't end. Individuals change, and occasionally they spiral. 2 months or so after the wedding, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. My blood raced cold when I heard the message after I had left it on voicemail. "This is Margaret, Emma, please give me a call back. It's Leah. She's in the medical facility. She attempted self-harm. Emma, please, we need you." I went cold. Leah had attempted suicide. I felt sick to my stomach for a moment. The sister that had destroyed my life, lied about me, and split up my family, Leah, was in the hospital after attempting suicide. I suppressed the guilt that washed over me. I was not at blame for this. I wasn't accountable for Leah's decisions. She had made them on her own. Nevertheless, it troubled me that Margaret had contacted me and begged me to come. In an attempt to determine Margaret's tone, I listened to the voicemail once more. Was it a desperate move? Fear? Feeling guilty? I had no idea. She was urging me to return to the mess I had worked so hard to escape, even though I hadn't spoken to her since I had gone. At last, I plucked up the confidence to tell Noah as he was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I said as neutrally as possible, "I got a voicemail from Margaret. Leah is in the medical facility. She attempted self-harm." His forehead was wrinkled with worry as he looked up from the stove. "What was it she said? Is Leah all right?" I acknowledged. They didn't give much detail. Margaret immediately asked me to come to the hospital after saying she was there. She sounded frantic. After wiping his hands on a towel, Noah approached me and put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "How are you going to proceed?" "Uncertain," I shrugged. "I'm not sure. After years of attempting to escape them all and the harm they inflicted, I feel as though I'm being pulled back into it. I'm not sure if I can make it." Noah spoke in a soft yet forceful tone. "You owe them nothing, Emma. Your family made their decisions and Leah made hers. You are not accountable for her or her fate." Even though his statements confirmed what I was thinking, it didn't help me decide. There was a part of me that felt obligated, the part that still remembered Leah as the young child I had once attempted to be a big sister to. However, my logical side, which had established a life free of their poison, understood I couldn't turn back. I stayed up that night reliving the things that had brought us all to this point. The years of manipulation, the lies told by Leah, and the numerous times my father had picked her over me. With Leah in such a vulnerable state, was it really possible for me to return to their life at this point? What would that achieve? I considered the potential consequences of actually visiting the hospital. How would I respond? Would they want me to overlook Leah's suffering because she was in a horrible position and forgive her? What if I wasn't able to forgive her? What would happen if I went and it made things worse? I decided what I would do the following morning. I had no intention of going. I could tell Noah was worried, but he was on my side. "Are you certain?" he inquired. "I don't want you to come to regret this." I tried to persuade myself as much as he did, saying, "I'm sure. Leah got here because of her decisions. I've wasted too much time attempting to make things right that weren't my responsibility. I refused to be coerced into returning by their guilt. I didn't call Margaret back as a result. I chose not to visit the hospital. I stayed away because I preferred the tranquility I had battled so hard to the mayhem my family constantly brought." I got another message a few weeks later, this time from my dad. His voice was something I had not heard since the wedding ultimatum. "It's Dad, Emma. I can see why you might be upset, but Leah is now in treatment and I believe it would be very meaningful for her if you came to see her. She is receiving assistance. She is attempting to atone for her actions and has acknowledged what she done. I realize this is a lot to ask, but perhaps it's time for the family to begin mending. Please give it some thought." I didn't respond, so I erased the mail. Leah was in treatment. My father said she was seeking assistance and confessing to all she did. However, I was wise enough to avoid becoming entangled in that web again. Even if Leah was making amends now, it didn't negate what she had done to me. She had been manipulating others for years. The years of harm and the reality that my family had deserted me when I most needed them were not undone by it. I got additional messages in the weeks that followed. Margaret called multiple times and left heartfelt, lengthy voicemails expressing their desire to reunite as a family and how Leah was getting better. To give Leah a chance, my father texted me to come see her in the rehab center, but I consistently ignored him. I had already decided. About 6 months after Leah's suicide attempt, I happened to run into Dylan one afternoon. It came as a complete surprise. On a bright Saturday, Noah and I were having lunch when I noticed him across the street. At the same moment he noticed me and he approached before I could dodge him. "Emma," he murmured with a startled tone. "I was surprised to see you here." A rush of unease washed over me as I attempted a grin. Since Dylan told me about Leah's falsehoods years ago, I hadn't seen him. It felt weird to see him now, after everything. "Yeah, just out with Noah," I said, nodding to my husband, who was observing us from the cafe table with interest. After a little pause, Dylan resumed his conversation. "I'm not trying to bother you, but have you heard anything about Leah?" I tensed up. "Enough has been said," he went on, disregarding the icy tone in my voice. "She's in rehab. Emma, she's making a sincere effort. She has now acknowledged everything, even though I know she damaged you. Perhaps she is resolving her problems." I interjected, my voice hard. "Dylan, stop. I'm glad she's receiving assistance, but it doesn't make a difference in my opinion. I've moved on." Dylan's eyes were a mix of grief and pity as he gazed at me. "I truly understand. However, Emma, individuals can change. Perhaps Leah is attempting to make amends." I became impatient and yelled, "I don't need her amends. I have no obligation to her. Her falsehoods caused me to suffer for years. Because she feels bad, I won't allow her back into my life at this time." Dylan let out a sigh, obviously understanding that he couldn't make me change my decision. "All right, I simply felt you ought to be aware." I wanted the talk to stop, so I nodded. "I appreciate you telling me." Before leaving, he offered me a melancholy little smile. After observing him leave, Noah turned to face me. "Are you all right?" Even though I wasn't positive, I nodded. Dylan had reminded me of past pains and memories, but I wasn't going to allow it to take me back there. I said, "I'm fine," attempting to put the encounter behind me. "All I want to do is concentrate on us and our lives." The texts from Margaret and my father became less frequent over time. I didn't care that Leah had finished her time in rehab and seemed to be doing well. I had decided to permanently cut them off, and I had no intention of changing my mind. Late at night, I would occasionally ponder what my life could have been like if my father had never believed Leah and she had never told those falsehoods. Would our family still exist? Would the course of events have been different? However, those sentiments were short-lived, and I consistently ignored them. With Noah, I now had my own family. For me, it was sufficient that we were creating a life together free from the poisonous dynamics of my past. The calls eventually ceased completely. Despite their entreaties, my father and Margaret must have recognized that I was not returning. Leah also appeared to realize that she couldn't repair what she had damaged. So I put the past behind me, where it belonged, and moved on.